ambayo hata kwa Mwenyezi Mungu haifai kabisa. Mara ya kwanza kuchinjwa, mara ya pili kuchinjwa, mara tatu kuchinjwa. Hasa imekuwa hii ni kitu imeenda fluently. Hasa paka watu wanaanza kujiuliza maswali na tunaambiwa kuwa security iko. Sisi hatuoni security.
Lamu Senator Joseph Githuku has asked the National Security and Defence Committee in the Senate to present a report on the security situation in Lamu County following frequent attacks in the region. In his motion, Githuku has asked the committee to explain this current situation in Lamu and clarify whether the current situation is caused by historical injustices or members of the Al-Shabaab terrorist group.
Confirm if any arrests have been made and the perpetrators prosecuted for their actions. Number 4, state whether funds, if any, have been allocated to compensate the victims of terrorism attacks in Lamu County, disclosing the budget allocated and criteria used in compensating the beneficiaries.
The government has deployed special unit officers to the northeastern and coastal counties to deal with terrorism attacks that have been troubling people living in the regions. Interior CS Kithure Kindiki has also promised to increase the number of security officers in the areas that have been witnessing frequent attacks.
We are going to deploy in this county special forces, elite units of the National Police Service and other national security organs here in Tana River. We are going to deploy the special forces, special units who are specially trained and equipped to deal with serious crimes, including terrorism and banditry.
Kindiki further stressed that the government will deal with all criminals in northeastern and the coast, giving a stern warning to those colluding with the said criminals.
Kuna hawa majangili na wale magaidi ambao wanatusumbua hapa kutoka nchi jirani katika eneo la Boni Forest, Northeastern, hapa Tana River kidogo. Tumeamua ni vita kamili baina ya serikali ya Kenya na hawa magaidi. Na wale vikosi ambao tunaleta hapa hawacheki na magaidi na wanajua jinsi ya kuwashughulikia.
Nominated Senator Gloria Oroba has been suspended from the Senate and Parliament precincts for 6 months. This follows the adoption of a report by the Powers and Privileges Committee of the Senate, which made the decision to suspend Oroba after she failed to appear before it to defend herself against charges leveled against her. The report was tabled for debate with the House in a majority vote, upholding the decision to suspend her. Oroba faced several counts, among them making unsubstantiated allegations that there were instances of pursuit of sexual favors in Parliament by posting messages on the Senate Business WhatsApp group.
But now this senator comes up with allegations against the clerk, and the clerk has no voice. The clerk is supposed to keep quiet. Nyegenye deserves respect. Nyegenye deserves justice. And the justice is for us to pass this motion. Mr. Speaker, I support this motion because we must stop this kind of decorum in this House.
I beg to differ with the report and state that not only is it very punitive to our colleague Senator Gloria, it is also seems to be discriminatory because...
I'm Dennis Asada. Good morning.
The following takes place from 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. every weekday on Spice FM.
The man who looks at a beautiful girl and doesn't talk to her will end up serving lunch at her wedding.
Hiya, City. Do like that.
My father has killed a mouse. Will he fail to kill a man?
Ameua panya.
Small mammal, big mammal.
Mtu atamshinda. I mean, I don't understand. What are they saying?
How are we comparison? I mean, you kill a mouse.
What are they saying?
What they're saying is, my father has killed a mouse. Will he fail to kill a man? Name, surprise. Someone's name.
The name surprised you?
No, the name is surprise.
No, what am I saying? I'm from Nigeria, man. I met somebody called I Believe. So
See?
Your name is I Believe? Yes, my name is I Believe. But that's the short form. I said, excuse me? I said, yes. My name is I Believe. So what's the full name? I believe in the goodness of
The Situation Room Kenya's biggest conversation.
You tune into Kenya's biggest conversation. My name is Ramanya.
Amen. Amen.
So 1 hour is over?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
It gets over
Can you imagine
in 20 minutes.
what the big boys have also done?
I'm very proud of myself. When you understand about partnership in politics, it's like the way marriage is these days. When you're looking for a wife, you're like, oh, maybe you can help me pay for fees as I pay for the rent.
Why should you have a lioness living in your bedroom?
I have to tell you a story. I went for a prayer meeting, which was called for the spouses of candidates for senators and governors. And when I got to the gate, the lady who was the secretary, she refused to. She's telling me, no. Leo tunataka wa mama. Leo ni wa mama. I'm telling her, no. She said, no, sio siku yenu. And I thought, there's a problem here, because if it was a man, but this was a lady.
It will be called First Ladies until you change the name.
The Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation.
When you're impeached, you're impeached. When you're sentenced, you're sentenced.
Madam Chief Justice.
Until the sentence is set aside.
Ukibeba vitu kwa roho utakufa. If you carry things in your heart, you will die.
The reason for which you went to school and then gathered experience, that reason must be paid for.
Oh, right.
Okay.
This level.
Shape up or ship out.
Levels don't change.
No.
It's about shipping up.
You know my business partner here.
Shipping out.
Are we talking about the ship in the bathtub? Or
the ship man?
Emmanuel Talabu used to tell us a story of going in school and then been told to write composition about a ship. His classmate raises a hand. Teacher, are you talking about the ship or ship goat?
The Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation.
good morning. Welcome to Thursday, looking at the tail end of the week and what do these streets have to offer up to us this morning. Not much coming off of Jago Road, a little bit of movement as you get towards the Makadara train station, and as you get out towards Landis is when we're likely to see it picking up with some traffic. The Thika Superhighway looks pretty good. You'll get out through towards Pangani. For once in a long time, not much happening right around there. We realize that it's still early. We'll wait and see what that opens up this Thursday. Langata Road looks good as you're getting out into the CBD. Uhuru Highway all the way from the junction at Haile Selassie into the CBD out towards Westlands looks good. Inbound traffic also from the Westlands area not looking bad at all. All right, looks like we might have a slow start to Thursday, but that's a good thing. If you haven't left, do so now. And if you have already, I guess you've reached where you're going. Let's see how Thursday opens up to be. And let's talk on Spice FM KE on X.
This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Oko, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latin, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is The Situation Room.
Start your day. It's coming round to 11 minutes after 6 on this Thursday. It's Thursday. Yes, it is. I said that before. Good morning to you, and how are you doing on this 21st day of September? Do you remember? 21st day of September. Yeah, it was that one, and here we are. That 21st day. Earth, Wind and Fire did that some many years ago, but it's still a classic till today.
Where's Edna? Edna, find that song.
And here we are. Good morning, CT.
Morning, dude.
Have you swept away all the cobwebs?
No.
No?
Man, a few cobwebs are always useful. You just sweep away the most destructive ones. Otherwise, we keep some just,
around.
Not even around, among.
How are you this morning, man?
This morning I'm good. It rained yesterday.
It did do a thing, didn't it?
Actually, there was some phenomenal heat yesterday, and it started even at night. I actually thought I was unwell, but then I didn't feel unwell because it was hot, and I'm thinking, no, my body is heating up. I realized, no. It is hot.
It's not you who is hot.
No.
It is the weather.
No. It's not me who's heating up. Where? Don't put words in my mouth.
I'm sorry. Shh. There's that song. Edna, do like that.
That one.
Your antenna has to be up. Do you remember?
It's a receptor.
21st night of September. Hey, that's today. Yeah, while chasing the clouds away, our hearts were ringing in the key that our souls were singing. Hey, I'm telling you, lyrics were not a joke, man. Those guys were able to put some music together properly. How the stars stole the night away. Hey, dancing in September. Dancing in September. Beautiful song. Thank you, Earth, Wind, and Fire. So remembered until today, essentially, Asante Sana. Okay, good morning. Our guest host is somewhere in the vicinity, in the halls. When she arrives, then you people will know who she is, and we'll say hello to her in a minute. All right, before that happens, good morning once again. You know how we get into one of those functions and somebody's supposed to give the speech and they say, good morning, everybody. You say good morning. Then they say, good morning once again.
Yeah, good morning.
Then you say, good morning.
Then he says, okay. Meaning
I'm going to be brief, really.
No, the response is inadequate. So he figures, let me ramp it up. God is good.
And all the time?
God is good.
Sheesh, because we are looking for you people to wake up. So, good morning once again, everybody.
Yes.
So today, some political conversations are lined up and having insight into really what's going on. The senator for Kajiado County will be in the hot seat at 7 a.m. Paris Tobiko, CBS, will be here with us, and we'll be looking at the effectiveness of the oversight role of Senate in the last 12 months and how that has worked and how it's going and really what is going on. It is Justice Thursday, and at 8 a.m. the mandate of the Land Acquisition Tribunal will be up for discussion, and Dr. Nabil Orina, who is incidentally the chairman of the Land Acquisition Tribunal, will be with us at 8 o'clock. And then we'll round things up at 9 a.m. with the West Mugirango MP, Steve Mogaka, and we'll be talking about what's to come in the next few weeks, months and years. How has the KK government fared so far? And should we brace for more difficult times? Those are the conversations we'll be having this morning, 7, 8, 9, right in the hot seat. Somebody will be there to help us with those conversations and to find out exactly what is going on. So we see you guys. Karibu Sana. We'll say hello to you in just a minute, but it seems like we're starting off Thursday just right. Our social handles there, Spice FM KE. Our live streams are up on YouTube and Facebook. Thank you for joining us already. We'll take a look at the weather and come back and have a hello to you.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
It's critical that people pay taxes. But then taxation has to have a limit. When you start overtaxing people beyond certain limit, then this is now we call robbery with violence.
We are all struggling, but we don't show. If you're not doing well, shame on you. But you have to say, I'm broke and I'm struggling. We are not okay until everybody is okay.
We are pretending to have political parties. Why don't we just be honest? And we say, these are the Luyas, these are the Kambas, these are the Kikuyus, and we find ourselves in Kenya.
You know, with politics and leadership, no matter what you do, there will always be a complaint. There will always be the assumption that you're either stealing or you're not doing things right. As a leader, don't fear. If you know you're doing the right thing, you've thought about it, you've got an expert advice, do it, then understand later.
This country, we don't need prayers. Prayers is between you and God. Good governance and thinkers who care about the country and not their stomach.
That's what we need.
The Situation Room. Kenya's biggest conversation.
Cloudy conditions in Nairobi this morning at 16, highs of 26, and we'll see lows of 15. It's 14 and partly cloudy in Nakuru at going to highs of 24. We'll see lows of 13. 15 and cloudy in Nyeri, highs of 27, and we'll see highs of 22. In a partly cloudy Eldoret at 13. It's mostly clear at 24 this morning in Mombasa, highs of 30, and we'll see highs of 30 as well in a partly cloudy Malindi at 24. It's 19 and partly cloudy in Kisumu, highs of 28 and lows of 18. Kakamega is cloudy at 15, highs of 28, and looking into a partly cloudy Kampala at 18. It'll go to highs of 27 and lows of 17. It's partly cloudy at 23 in Dar es Salaam, highs of 29 and lows of 23. Partly cloudy in Johannesburg at 13, highs of 27 and lows of 12, and it's clear at 26 in Lagos with highs of 30. We'll see lows of 25. Kinshasa is partly cloudy at 25, highs of 34 and lows of 23. At 24, looking into Thursday afternoon, Beijing is sunny at 24, highs of 28 and lows of 17. Heavy rain in Paris this morning at 19 and lows of 12, and London is mostly cloudy at 14. Going to highs of 19. Wednesday night is clear in New York at 18. Coming into Thursday, we'll see highs of 24 and lows of 13.
Spice up your life. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself.
For joining us already, 18 minutes after 6 o'clock, and everybody knocking on that door. All right, good morning. Okay, for those who don't know yet, Eric is on leave. It is a man-made, or rather allowed thing for this to happen. So he's away for some days, and he'll be back when that is over. Sawa. Okay. Agri Momanyi says, good morning. Pole to Man U fans, Gloria Orwoba, and congrats to the great Arsenal FC. Okay. Yes, Edna, we can see you waving flags. Arsenal, oh yeah, thank you very much. And also, Eric, if he were here, he would be dancing on the table. All right. James Sekento says, good morning, tuned in from Kerara Pon. And Mwachoma Bwanji, CT and Ndu. This week we say Sabata Ino, and I have an exam on Friday this week. In Malawi, it is Ndili Ndi Mayeso Lasichanu Sabata Ino. Mesikia yo?
Yes.
Greeted you, and this week I have an exam. Okay, so Don Sabwa, good morning to you. Okay, wapi ile mtu ya Kimana he's around, don't worry. So George Gashoiri says, good morning, pass my regards to him, we will have a great day. Ricardo Mariera says, good morning, kings and queens, tuned in from Kitengela. Zeke says, happy Thursday to you, lady and gentlemen, and the guests, whoever they will be. Yes, we'll talk to them in a minute. James Mwangi says, good morning, tuned in. Monis Janeth is tuned in from Singapore this morning. And George Mutoro says, hi veterans, tuned in from Kisi Town. A big up to all in your school. Okay.
In your school?
Yeah, that's what he said. Nerima, good morning.
Morning.
How are you?
Now, since some tea, I feel great.
Look at you.
Yeah,
it's amazing what some, tea and red lipstick will do.
Amen.
Isn't it?
Yes,
you were going to say conversation.
No, the tea and lipstick is important first. Then now we can move, graduate.
I accept what you say.
Sure, you understand.
Absolutely. I don't understand it, but I accept.
Nerima Wako Jiwa is our guest host this morning, the executive director of Siasa Place, and she joins us for the show today. Karibu Sana.
Thank you.
We'll say hello to everybody who comes on our socials right about now and knocks on the door and says yes. So they were looking for you, and now here she is. So please greet her, and now read out your greetings. Okay. They believe that Eric went to New York to attend Unga. He'll come and tell us if that's what he did. Robert Mbogo says good morning. Joseph Asweto says good morning, listening in from New York City. Okay. From Bonny Island, good morning, Ndu. Please ask CT how he thinks the national cake of poverty and cost of living could be shared equitably between the mean and the mighty.
I have heard.
You've heard. You're going to think about it and tell us later?
Yes, I will think about it.
Ni sawa sawa. Wairimo's in this morning. Carol Nyambura says, good morning, good people. Deep State is asking, Ndu umelala disco. What are you saying? It's the 21st of September. How do you get through the day without singing some Earth, Wind and Fire? Come on, man. Deep State says, don't forget the acronyms. Well, okay, we'll see. Dave says, good morning. CT Ndu, Edna, kindly be a snitch and inform us if Eric went to join KDF. No, there was not enough space. Only 350, please. Tuned in from Minneapolis. Gregory Mobale says, good morning, Ndu and CT. My two fellow alumni in Bukusu, we say, Boisiele. Boisiele? Okay. Good morning to Nerima. Gregory, you're a good man. Morning, everybody. Thank you for joining us this morning. Really good to have you as we get into those conversations. Asante sana. Don Sabo is a happy man this week because the proverbs are coming from Malawi.
Yes.
City.
Today is Thursday.
It is.
So the proverb has to be?
It has to be simple, straightforward, to the point.
Yes. In other words, short and sweet.
Short and sweet. Okay. Sorry.
This particular proverb. 4 words.
I'm going to say 4 letters. Stop. Okay. Sorry.
4 words.
It's too early, but it was hilarious.
4 words. No.
Yes, sorry.
Words.
Correct, okay, please.
Ants die in sugar.
Man, this is not simple.
You said simple, man.
I know.
It is simple. Ants, you know. Not auntie.
Wait.
Not your father's sister.
Wait, the word for ants in Kiswahili. Wait.
It brings an S.
Siafu.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Yes. Ants die in sugar.
Do they though?
Yes, they do. They never know when enough is enough.
Okay.
Yes, they do die in sugar. They can't believe there's so much abundance
of this sweet thing.
So they just gorge themselves in that short life of theirs, and they make it even briefer.
Okay.
Didn't know that.
They do.
Can never get enough.
Yes. In the midst of plenty, there's also death.
It's deeper than, a simple thing for Thursday, CT. Well done.
Yes, Thursday is important to give your head a little rest.
Okay. Still deep though. All right, that's what's coming out of Malawi. Eddie Oduor from Koru. It's been a minute. Where are you, my friend? Say hello to us if you're tuned in this morning or any other morning. It'll be nice to get in touch. People who've fallen off the radar.
What about Mohammed?
Yeah. A lot of people that we've not seen for a minute. So if you're there, wave at us, we'll wink at you and all those nice things. Let's take a look at what's going on in the headlines this morning. Nerima, do you have the newspaper?
Oh, no.
You see now the problem?
Where's the paper?
Take this one. You tell us the headlines and then we'll come back and look into the stories later. Tell us what headlines you have on the Standard and then I'll tell you about the Nation Business Daily and then CT will tell us about the Star.
Okay. So on the Standard, quite a few things, honestly looking a bit depressing. It starts with Chipugali, not so soon. Maize farmers warn. Then it goes to Kagame to run for 4th term. And I skip over to the headline, which is no longer at ease. And there's a picture there of Ruto looking a bit under pressure, drinking a glass of water. And it says, the war within. All is not well in President Ruto's inner sanctums, and it is exploding into the open fast. First, it was UDA Secretary General Malala taking up the battle to collapse Kenya Kwanza affiliate parties. And now, Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua and Trade CS Moses Kuria have opened a can of worms with their war of words, triggering resignation calls for the former Gatundu MP. Then we go over to the bottom. It says cost of living. Borrow leaf from Kibaki, Uhuru's playbook, president told. And then ending with, I was headhunted to marry governor's son, claims woman, on page 3.
People are headhunted for marriage.
I'm wondering.
Yes.
Hey.
Yes. You have a busybody auntie.
Who has decided,
who has seen?
It's time.
There's a classmate of hers who has a daughter who resembles her mother in every way.
You know what? That's a bit unfair.
And
it's only the auntie.
They're the ones who tend to be busybodies, yes. And
has her nephew somewhere.
The nephew is intact. But then she has a friend she went to school with. And that
friend has a daughter.
And that daughter is like her mother, and the mother is a solid woman. Okay. And the girl, to her credit, even looks like the mother. Yes.
This sounds like very familiar.
It doesn't, though. Doesn't it? Yeah.
But it's a conversation I've heard on very many occasions. Yes. I have situations where I've had relatives for whom wives have been found.
Did
And
it
then
work?
they marry.
I know.
Because they've been seen to be dilly-dallying.
You're wasting time, I beg. We
Wasting
want
time
to
for heaven's
see
sake.
you
Yes.
get ripe, have children, this
Yes.
kind of then. You cannot just be making money and you don't have a wife
Yes,
or like
exactly.
this and you don't have a husband.
And by the way, when the wife is brought for you, it's not a joke. She's brought, literally. It's like a package. Deal is landed, pop. Now you deal.
You can't refuse.
There's, you know, in this day and age of human rights and all these things, you actually think that you have a say. You have a say, but it's only one say.
Yeah.
Yes.
I knew it.
And by the way, what I found odd about those situations, they work.
That's what I was going to ask.
They work. Oddly enough, they work. And when the person who was brought, it's the young lady who is brought. Young men are just introduced. But when the young lady, you are given fine details as to why she is perfect. I dare say in some of the cases, I understood the rationale behind those choices. I did understand. Yes.
Okay. On the front page of The Nation, trouble in paradise, also giving into that story. Who will blink first? An online exchange between Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua and Trade Cabinet Secretary Moses Kuria is the latest in a series of rows that exposes simmering power struggle and the soft underbelly of President William Ruto's ruling Kenya Kwanza administration. Okay, so what's happening there? A record 3.5 million will sit national exams this year. Candidates will sit the Kenya Primary Education Assessment, that's the KEPSEA, Standard or Grade 6, the Kenya Certificate of Primary Education, the last Class 8, and the Kenya Certificate of Secondary Education, that's the KCSE. We'll look at that. Painkiller for children has been recalled by a regulator, that's in the health stories. And in Haiti, Ruto has been lauded for his peacekeeping mission. Ruto has been lauded for his peacekeeping mission in Haiti with the UN-backed security mission. Today, remembering what happened at Westgate 10 years on, the terror strike that changed our lives. And this is how things have changed. And we'll look into that story. Right, so we're looking at the exams on the back page, and let's look at the Business Daily. How Kenya's security spending spying changed after Westgate. How Kenya's security spending spying changed after Westgate, and coffee prices dip, layoffs loom amid Gachagua reforms. So maybe the reforms are not reforming. Right? Yeah. CT, what do you have?
Yes, please. In Till Green, right-hand corner of the star, taxpayer shillings. Now, this is a story, and this is how it's headlined. First Lady invites Benny Hinn for state-sponsored crusade. Now, you may wonder, who is Benny Hinn?
Oh, we know.
You know who Benny Hinn is?
Yes.
You do, eh? Okay, who is he?
I guess like a big, major, prayerful guy. I don't want to
Pastor,
say
preacher.
prophet. I know, but claims to be. But yeah.
So he's a
You
big
can
prophet.
pray for miracles through handkerchiefs.
Yeah, and oil and water, something.
The city is looking.
You don't know Benny Hinn?
I don't know who he is.
He's who?
In fact, his full names are Tawfik Benedictus Hinn.
I didn't know that.
Yes. He's an Israeli-born American-Canadian. He's what you call a televangelist. Best known for regular miracle crusades, revival meetings, or faith-healing summits. Okay? That's what he's known for. Okay? But his full names, let me repeat again. Tawfik, T-O-U-F-I-K, Benedictus. Benny Hinn. Okay? Benedictus is a bit of a mouthful. So I figured Benny can work.
Benny can work.
Okay? So, problem here is that it's being intimated that she's coming on taxpayer money. And some people are finding a bit of a problem with it. Personally, I'm not finding a problem with it.
With what?
With him coming.
Oh.
Even on taxpayers' money, I do not have a problem with
Is
it.
Kenya paying for him to come?
I have no problem. Kenya pays for consultants. This guy's a consultant. Yes, he is a consultant, but with the Almighty. Okay? He is a consultant. In fact, okay, commission agent. He's a go-between. This is a
God
person,
and
yes, and us puny mortals. You see, I don't understand how it is we can claim to have consultants coming from wherever it is they tend to come from, consulting on water, consulting on parastatals, and we pay a hefty penny. One doesn't even question, all right? It's like the checkbook is open for them. Now, this person, if he is coming for whatever is coming, which I will elucidate later on, he's a consultant. By all means, let him come. But this one, there'll be a lot of discussions around it. And there'll be, I personally, I see Timuga, I see no problem with it. Okay. There was this gentleman, a Kenyan, okay? A gentleman by the name of Billy Kipkorir Chemirmer, okay? He was convicted of smothering to death elderly women in nursing homes. Remember that story?
Yeah.
Using pillows before taking their valuables. Now, he was jailed, but he was beaten and stabbed to death using a pen by a fellow murder inmate with whom he shared a cell. Meaning, even among inmates, there are codes. And this guy was also a murderer.
Yeah.
Okay, but he felt, look, even us murderers have limits.
We have levels, and
Yes,
your own
sure.
level has passed out.
No, this one is not acceptable. Even in the guilt of murderers, this one is not really acceptable. There are things we don't do. I mean, we all kill people, but
yours, the way in which you did yours is too much.
Come on, you have to have limits. Okay. Then KU hospital referral facilities run by a nurse. So what? Anyway, there is a story here of KU Referral Hospital, KUTRRH.
Yeah.
Okay. That one, because the nature at the end. Yeah, apparently there was whatever policy requirements require that the facility be, since the research facility is run by a medical doctor, and apparently it's being run by a nurse. So what's the biggie?
That it's being run by a nurse as opposed to a doctor?
Yeah, I'm asking, where's the biggie? Again, this one we'll look into in great detail to understand what the biggie is, isn't it?
Okay.
Austerity. President, DP, and Musalia offices biggest spenders. See? Doing what with the money? Okay. Ruto and Rigathi spent 1.4 billion on travel in 9 months.
Oh my gosh.
President said he inherited an economy in shambles. Fixing it would be painful. We can see.
We can see fixing it by spending some 9 billion. How much?
1.4.
1.4 million.
Yeah.
Okay.
Traveling.
Very good.
1.4 billion.
1.4 billion.
Not million.
Not million. Yeah, I was going to say 1.4
It is a lot of money. But please understand, you have to be fair on this matter. The president doesn't travel alone.
There's an entourage.
Yes. Entourage, DM.
Of course. And you're not staying in some shack somewhere.
Nope. And you're not staying with your relatives. No, it's
okay.
Government, CC.
Let's take a break, please. Sawa. Let's take a 1.4 billion shilling break and take a look at traffic, and then we'll come back and look at some of these stories in greater detail. What's making the news around the country is already very interesting this morning. It's 25 minutes to 7.
This is one of the hottest show that we can ever miss in the morning, and it's a show that really gives a real situation in the situation room.
Pleasure to be here. Thank you guys so much. Nduthai, nice meeting you. Yes. Even beautiful in person more than in photos. Say that again.
Character is like pregnancy, you cannot hide it. You know, people hiding here and there, you know, but after 2-3 months, 5 months, now you realize, so that is why the attitude that you were showing us, you're pregnant.
It's like what my grandmother would say, you cannot pickpocket a naked man. How's that? It's communal, isn't it?
No comment.
The Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation.
Okay, the most of it this morning is happening right around the Thika Superhighway, getting out towards Survey. Into the CBD, Muranga Road, Wangari Maathai actually looks pretty good. There's not much coming off of Kiambu Road, at least not for now. And we're also seeing movement on Jogo Road. It's taking out towards Landis, which is starting to pile up. A lot of movement there getting towards Kamkunji at the roundabout. Uhuru Highway will get busy. This we know. It just have to matter of when and not if. Okay. Are you coming off Langata Road? You should be fine, at least for now, getting into the CBD. There's movement right around Cabanas as you're going towards North Airport Road, then towards Outer Ring at the junction, and then on towards Embakasi out towards the Eastern Bypass. All right, so let's just keep an eye on things. It's starting, it's early, but we're aware that it will get messy later. Spice FM KE on X. Let's keep things moving this morning.
Chilled Spice. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
Oh, you want me to start? Okay,
Yeah.
let me start. Okay, so let's look at this trouble in paradise story. Who will blink first? I mean, there's a lot of blah, blah, blah on socials in terms of what's going on. And so if it's wild conjecture or if it's actually the case, the war of words between Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua and Trade Cabinet Secretary Moses Kuria escalated yesterday, exposing a simmering power struggle within President William Ruto's administration. Kuria was in the last couple of days fired a series of tweets perceived to be in response to Mr. Gachagua, who reprimanded him alongside other senior government officials for arrogance in an unprecedented infighting that poses a dilemma on the president whether to crack the whip or please his deputy or risk straining his relationship with him. The current palace wars have been ongoing, according to sources in government circles, and are linked to local Mount Kenya supremacy political battles. Now, why the rest of the country has to be privy to this, we do not know, but it definitely has a bearing on how you're going to perceive government and what exactly might or might not be going on. Certain things were said, whether they were palatable or not. Should it not have been? Should there have been some kind of sensitivity when it came to dealing with Kenyans on the cost of living? Yeah, I mean, come on, should have been tempered a little bit. But then the underbelly of this thing is really now starting to come out. Who's fighting who and why? And is it going to forbear? There have been talks of shuffle or reshuffle or undershuffle kind of thing. Does it bear on then how the country will be governed tomorrow? And I think that is what would be the important thing here.
But are they really fighting?
That's the thing. Are they? Is there a conflict?
Is there? And is there this competition for the heart of the mountain? Is it really there? And if it's there, is this the form that it's taking? You know, in a time gone by, we, in President Moi's time, there were three individuals who were very hawkish in the way they approached matters. One, there was a gentleman by the name of Okikio Amayo.
Mm-hmm.
He was chair of some disciplinary committee that Kanu set up. Man, if you went before that person, your goose was monumentally cooked. Then there's a guy called Sharif Nasir who would utter some unspeakable things from time to time. With the time it became apparent they were testing the waters. It's like Sharif says something and people say back, how are people going to respond? The things that Moses Kuria says, our opinions are divided on this matter, whether Moses Kuria is actually a very intelligent person or he isn't. But the point is this, in a government such as this one, there has to be someone. He's not a court jester, but this is the person who tests the temperature of things in a country.
You got to have a wild card.
You have to. Somebody who, with the greatest of ease, simply lets fly all manner of things, and then you see where the chips fall. Either that or the gentleman is fairly insecure and needs to get a lot of attention all the time. So every once in a while...
I think it's B.
Okay, right off the blocks.
Karim has jumped on that one.
Yeah.
So, I mean, we don't really know. Because when you meet Moses Kuria and you talk to him, he's a very sensible fellow.
A lot of people say that, CT.
And he's also not just sensible, he's actually intelligent. The people say, no, he is actually. We have had the opportunity of speaking to him. So I can speak authoritatively that he's a quick thinker. He understands things quickly. So when you find this side of him, you have to ask, what exactly are we seeing here? Is it deliberate?
But do you think that maybe he's so used to politics, like as a member of parliament, and not executive, not cabinet,
not policy?
Yeah, not policy, which is a different kind of politics, I think. I think the way he behaves is how he has always behaved.
Yes.
When he would utter things, sometimes he would be completely drunk. And he would do that on social media and not making any sense at all. And then now he has brought this habit, hizi tabia, amezileta hapa juu. So now he comes up here, behaves the same way, and then he's like, wait a minute, I change? How? How do you expect me to change just because I'm in a different position?
If you go back to all that, you'll ask yourself, are you saying that this behavior is something that is to be expected of him throughout his life? Or are there moments when he doesn't behave like this? There must be moments when he doesn't behave like this.
When he said he would stop drinking. And then we don't know how long that lasted. And then he's just back to it. I feel for me, I see a coping mechanism. For him, it's like act so crazy that no one wants to throw mud. Everyone just completely avoids me. And then I'm able to do whatever I want to do, rather than debate and have intellectual conversations with you about policy, because heck, I might not know what I'm doing here.
So this is what, like a smoke screen?
It's called a coping mechanism.
That's me. I think he's coping. I think that's how he copes.
You know what
I
happens?
think he's falling apart.
There's a third perspective. There are those who feel that he shouldn't even be discussed at all, giving him unnecessary airtime.
True.
But the unfortunate thing is this: the things he says does have an effect. Enough said.
It does. It has an effect to warrant an answer, or to warrant a kick, or a clip back from the deputy president, to even come out with a warning and say, look guys, we need to be very careful about how we talk to Kenyans about a situation that they are feeling. It warranted a comeback from the deputy president.
He would know, wouldn't he? Because he himself has been known to make some very serious gaffes.
Colourful things have been said by him as well.
Yes.
Right.
See, do you remember the time when he was debating the price of cooking oil? That was a very important moment, because it's prime time. A lot of Kenyans are watching news. They want to understand the prices. And then we had a whole debate of almost 30 minutes until they had to go to an actual supermarket and show him, dude, this is the price. We were right. He took 30 minutes of important Kenyan time. That was a distraction. And this is what he's good at, because he was trying to avoid having the real conversation. Because he doesn't have the answers. That is what he does.
But Nerima, if I'm to be fair to the Honorable Minister, who in this government has the answers? I mean, asking a simple question, and if you look at the problems we currently have, even if it wasn't this government, who would have the answers? Who? Because it is easy to point at the problem, and we all do that very well. And there are those who also argue that you can find solutions. I believe you can. But the thing about solutions is you see the manifestations of the solutions therein. So if you don't see any, then all you know is that you're hearing talk about solutions, but not solutions.
Okay. Your story, CT?
This story about the referral hospital. This one I have to tell you, because I find it particularly interesting. Why is it that this writer is trying to write and comment as though nurses are not qualified to run hospitals? This I don't understand. MPs are questioning how Kenyatta University Hospital, a national referral and research facility, is run by a nurse instead of a medical doctor as required. In a stormy Wednesday afternoon session, lawmakers put to task KUTRRH board chair Professor Olive Mugenda over what they termed as a blatant breach of the law. According to the law, the CEO of a national referral hospital must be a trained medical doctor and not a nurse, as in the case of KUTRRH. The CEO is not a doctor but a nurse. But what does the law say about the qualifications of a CEO of a public facility such as Kenyatta, blah, 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 blah? And the story goes on, and the question. But in her response, she explained that the CEO is a holder of a degree in nursing and has a master's degree in business administration. You know, this discussion in the way it has been presented, doesn't explain in detail why it is a doctor is better qualified to lead that organization than a nurse. It doesn't. And it also seems to imply that nurses are inferior in terms of capacity than the doctor. The nursing profession is a profession that is separate. They are not an adjunct of the medical profession that doctors...
Or an extra appendage.
No, they are not. It's not a subset of this particular whole. It's a profession on its own. They may have good reasons why it is they feel doctors should head the hospital, but this story doesn't bring out that reason. Okay, you say the law. The law is anchored on what? It has to be anchored on some reality. So, it needs to be explained why it is a medical doctor would make a better CEO. It has to be. Not just by saying it is the law that doctor... Okay, so any doctor, so long as they're a doctor, can actually head the institution.
I think that until this whole issue of whether the referral hospital belongs to the university or is under the State Department, or how the operations then should now go moving forward, that we are going to have these flare-ups every now and then. Today it will be whether it's a nurse or a doctor. Tomorrow we will hear that it is about whether drugs should be delivered directly from KEMSA. We will hear so many different things until that particular backbone issue is sorted out. And I think this is just another symptom of a deeper problem that rests at KURRRTH. I think that is what we're just seeing, the symptoms of the problem. Somebody's going to pull something out of a hat again tomorrow and say, oh, by the way, I don't think that we should have 435 beds. I think we should have 500. It's going to be an issue until they sort out the backbone problem.
I'll tell you what the backbone problem was. This particular hospital, as it was first slated, it was intended to be helped or to enhance the training and research of Kenyatta University students. But then there was a legal notice number 4 of 2019. It changed all that and it made the facility into a parastatal. So now you will find that the students were locked out of the facility and had to carry out their practicums in Kiambu County Hospital. You see, what the hospital was meant for and what it has become changed. Now once it changed, the moment it becomes a parastatal, the manner in which it is run, what is expected of it, everything about it now changes. Okay? So,
I have something to add.
Yes.
Question. So, I'm with you in terms of criteria or maybe requirement, and maybe it's time to review. Perhaps the nurse is more qualified than a doctor, and not just any doctor. But I see an issue of ranking where Kenya is huge on hierarchy. It's like a doctor is perceived to be higher than a nurse. And so if the nurse is leading this institution or facility, then it would mean that doctors would be below her. And that's where I see the issue being. That's why I see a lot of contention. But also, number 2, I've seen a lot of private hospitals that are run not actually by doctors, they're clinicians. And they call themselves doctors. This is happening in this very city of ours. I do think that there are a lot of gaps in health, and a lot of questions do need to be answered.
Narima, most of the health facilities in this country, whether they're private or government, are run by clinical officers. Okay? Yes. The doctors come in later when some complication arises that cannot be managed by the individual, but the clinical officers tend to be the ones who actually run these facilities, and they're trained to run the facilities. The understanding, the confusion arises in people thinking that, again, the hierarchy you speak of, there's doctor, then there's this lesser being called a clinical officer, and even lesser being called a nurse, and so forth. These are different professions. They're very different professions. Each of those are trained to do something specific.
And they have something that they offer.
Yes, and it's unique. But in this country, it's lost in conversation somewhere.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the challenge.
Because if you're talking about, for instance, the care that's given in hospitals, it's nurses who are trained to do that. Yes.
All right, Nyeri, tell us what story you have.
Okay, my story. So on the Standard, we've already talked about No Longer at Ease being the cover. And I'm going to head over to what's highlighted on the left corner. Cheap ugali, not so soon, maize farmers won. and that's on page 10. So basically talking about farmers and millers say high cost of diesel will raise the price of maize despite fertilizer subsidy to break even. They want the government to set list price of 90 kilogram bag at 5,500 shillings. Yes.
Why are they saying that? Because what? It's going to be more expensive? I don't understand.
Okay, so basically they're saying that it's going to be a little bit more expensive, and so there are some statistics here. They're saying because now diesel is 201 to 202, those are the prices that they were looking at in Uasin Gishu.
Yeah.
That means 5,500 will be the minimum price of a 90 kg bag of maize that farmers want. And that basically means that 70,000 shillings, one farmer say he spent to harvest 20 bags of maize in 1 acre farm. And that basically means that the price of milk also is at 40 shillings against a farmer's proposed 60 shillings. So the cost of shelling a 90 kg bag of maize to rise by 200 shillings due to fuel costs.
My goodness. So we can see then that everything, and this is the ripple effect that we're talking about a couple of days ago, that we can see that just with that one action, swooping in and then touching the price of everything in one story, the price of maize, the price of milk, and all of this will definitely go up because of transportation costs. What fuels transportation? Essentially fuel, right? And if that is increasing, the end user, the consumer, is the one who's going to bear the brunt, and we're already seeing it. We're seeing it happening. So cost of living coming down, perhaps not. 3.5 million learners will sit national exams this year, and we're looking at this across 3 exam buckets. The Kenya Primary School Education Assessment, that's the KPSEA for grade 6s, the Kenya Certificate of Primary Education, KCPE, and that's the final one, and the Kenya Certificate of Secondary Education. It's the highest number of candidates ever registered in the country. Just under 1 million will sit KCSE this year, 1.4 will sit KCPE, and 1.2 will sit KPSEA, according to Basic Education Principal Secretary Belio Kipsang. He explained that when the Ministry of Education analysed KCPE data, it realised that many people had registered. Okay. He said we have almost 300 additional learners, more than they expected, and some of whom were adults who registered as private candidates. It comes as the Ministry of Education is revising the grading to focus on learners' competencies, skills, and knowledge. This year's candidates will be the first cohort to benefit from the new grading system, in line with the recommendation made by the Presidential Working Party on education reforms. The hope is that even as all of this is being done, that schools get the capitation that they need, that has been promised to them, to be able to finish this term strong, because we're still sitting in a place whereby that money has not been sent yet. It's not to its completion, and exams, at least for KPSEA and KCPE, actually will sit right around the same days, from 30th to 1st of November. So it's 5 weeks from now, 4.5 weeks from now. It'll be interesting to see how this all plays out, but it would be very nice to see that they finish this term having gotten everything that they need from Treasury. Yeah.
3.5, that's many.
It's the highest. According to this, is the it's the highest number that we've seen in the country ever registering for exams. Yeah. Moving on with that. It's your final story.
Yes, I am still on that little matter of. Let me tell you. Have we said anything about Westgate?
Well, no. In passing, but go ahead.
Yes, this story is in the Star. There's a bit of it in the Standard and a bit of it in the Nation. But the Business Daily has it bang in the middle. It says how Kenya's security spying changed after Watergate. Remember that one?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Now,
Westgate.
What do I call it?
Watergate. Watergate is America.
Watergate was the one.
The scandal, the big one with Nixon.
Westgate.
Yes. Yeah, this is Westgate.
Have we told the story?
No.
All right. NIS, National Intelligence Service allocations has more than tripled to 44 billion Kenyan shillings. Corporate demand drives private security industry growth. Now, the story in the Star merges very well with this. And the story is this. What came out of the Westgate disaster was more of a fiasco. Security units seem not to have agreed on the way forward. And it was argued then that the missing link in the security details was private security. Essentially, they were intimating that private security were not adequately trained. However, the argument now is that that gap has been bridged and private security have also upped their game and that they are now able to, let's say they're equal to the task. But more importantly, the intelligence gathering unit, called NIS, have been given even more money than they had before to ensure that they understand. Now, we are never really told of all the disasters that are averted. We don't get to hear. We only get to hear the ones where there's a shootout and people, that we hear of when it's averted, okay? But this budget of 44 billion is supposed to indicate to you the seriousness with which the government has taken this matter of security by ensuring that you get adequate intelligence. But then this here raises my question. We've talked of northern Kenya. It's quiet on that front. But northeastern Kenya, you're talking about the Lamu areas and those areas of northern Kenya. They are not that quiet.
At the moment?
No, they're not.
No, they're not.
No, they're not.
No.
And it is clear some of the things we read about are terror attacks. Now, that's what we read about. Now, what else happens that we do not know about?
Indeed. Indeed. And the reasons why these are being kept under wraps.
Yes.
The reasons why they're being kept under wraps, I think would be very interesting if they were ever to unfurl.
You see, I'm asking the question, and I'm asking it loudly, that if indeed we've allocated that amount of money and we believe it is supposed to do the task, so what is happening in those areas? Because Al-Shabaab seem to be gaining a foothold. Now, we are the African armed forces that were in Somalia are withdrawing. Okay? We also are working on that same scheme. So the question we're asking is, has Al-Shabaab grown? And if our military isn't there, will they now have a free passage to just walk in and out of the country as they see fit? Or do they already have units within the country whom we don't see, who in the day are ordinary civilians and at night are something else? You know, one of the problems that northern part of Kenya has always faced for the longest time, it was our road network.
Right.
When you have a bad road network, you become a very easy target. But there's a clear improvement on that network, but it is not adequate yet. There's still sections on that lengthy stretch which are, it's like tailor-made for people who wish to cause others harm. Yes.
Well, it's a bit of a scary situation once you think about it. Like, what could possibly happen if borders have been infiltrated and there's a presence, front and center every day? What can be averted? What poses a threat? What poses a clear and present danger? All right, coming around to 7 o'clock. In the hot seat at 7 a.m., Kajiado Senator Paris Tobiko will be in the hot seat, and we'll be looking at issues having to do with oversight in the Senate from a year till date. And after that, getting into that conversation proper. It's Kenya's biggest conversation. Good morning, everybody. Coming around to 7 a.m. Right after the news, we get into more of that conversation coming in from the Senate.
Spice up your life.
Good morning, this is Newswire. I'm Dennis Aseto. Nominated Senator Gloria Oroba has maintained a position that there is favoritism in the Senate while maintaining a complaint against Senate Clerk Jeremiah Nyengenye. Oroba, who is out of the country, said her frustrations have been occasioned by the fact that she turned down relationship requests. She says such approach have not only happened at home but have followed her abroad as well.
The Senate has to release a travel report because it is obvious when the travel report comes out, it is not my word against the clerk. You will see very well what I'm talking about. You will see how the clerk is actually using his office to, let's say, certain people in terms of compensating you with trips. There are people who are forever on flights, who are forever getting per diems from the exchequer, and it is in this travel report. People are earning out of it.
She's also condemned the session against being held while out of the country.
Senate is aware that I am not there, but yet they brought the motion today. Why? Because they knew that I would not get my 15 minutes to discuss this. And that is what is upsetting. So I still remain firm, and I remain that there are sexual favors. And the senators know this. They know that the senators who are actually, they are being paid, so to speak, because they are trading sexual favors for legislative agenda, for trips.
In the Senate session, Roba has been banned from attending parliamentary sessions for 6 months after the Senate agreed to the recommendations of the Committee on Powers and Privileges that she be punished for violating the ethics of Parliament. Roba is accused of raising allegations of sexual abuse and corruption in Parliament, which she presented on the Senate WhatsApp group and failed to substantiate the allegations. She is also accused of allegedly disrespecting her fellow MPs.
As we have come to the end of that debate, and I want to determine that this matter does not affect the country. Therefore, I want to put the question that honourable senators, I now put the question that the Senate adopts the report of the Committee of Powers and Privileges on the inquiry on its own motion into conduct of Senator Gloria Oroba MP, and to establish if the conduct constituted breach of parliamentary privilege laid on the table of the Senate on Wednesday, 9th August 2023. Will as many as of that opinion say aye? Aye. Will as many as of a contrary opinion say nay? Nay. The ayes have it.
And the Senate Committee on Devolution has submitted its report on whether Eldoret will be upgraded to a city. Chairperson of the committee, Wajir Senator Sheikh Abbas, said that the committee is satisfied with the request.
Honourable Speaker, I beg to give notice of a following motion that the Senate adopts the report of the Standing Committee on Devolution and Governmental Relations on the application for conferment of city status to the municipality of Eldoret, laid on the table of the Senate today, Wednesday, September 2023, pursuant to the Section 8(6) of the Urban Areas and Cities Act 2011. The Senate approves the conferment of the city status to the municipality of Eldoret. Chairperson, Standing Committee on Devolution and Intergovernmental Relations. Thank you, Speaker.
Senators are expected to discuss the report before making decisions on whether Eldoret will be the 5th city in Kenya. The Senate committee visited Eldoret in August to assess the infrastructure and its condition before submitting a report to Parliament. Now, the government has defended its move to launch the Maisha card, saying that they will facilitate access to various services provided by various government departments. Speaking after meeting with various civil society groups, Immigration and Citizen Services PS Julius Pitok pointed out that the identification cards are aimed at ensuring that Kenyans get government services quickly and easily.
We are saying we are implementing this National Digital Identity Project because it's going to be a game changer. Because through National Digital Identity, the government will guarantee Kenyan people of the security of the documents.
This is Amnesty International boss Irungu Houghton has indicated that there is need to be fully involved in sensitive issues concerning Kenyans, maintaining that civil society is tasked with ensuring that matters concerning citizens are fully covered.
We are in a different space qualitatively. So as human rights organizations, we are very keen to make sure that the design of the UPI and the third generation digital ID, public safety, ensuring that data protection, that your privacy as Kenyans is protected by design, not by accident, but by design. Secondly, that there is inclusion.
This is Newswire. I'm Dennis Aseto. Good morning.
Spice FM, Nakuru.
All right, so what are we now at a few minutes after 7 o'clock? We still have traffic just on Jogoo Road. It's getting out towards Landis. There's a lot of movement, but nothing at a bumper-to-bumper level just yet. We're also seeing traffic on the Thika Superhighway coming in towards Pangani. And Kiambu Road is also starting to build up. A little bit of that right around Muthaiga Square with that connection towards the Pangani underpass. If you're coming out from Gong Road, you should be fine all the way through towards the City Mortuary roundabout and then going either through towards Hellingham and then out towards Lavington or into the CBD. Doesn't look like much, at least not for now. We'll get into traffic hour in not too far from now, but we'll keep an eye on things and see how all of this progresses. In the meantime, let's talk on Spice FM KE on X.
This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Oko, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latif, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is The Situation Room,
8 minutes after
the only way to start your day.
21st day of September, Kenya's biggest conversation gets into its second hour and getting into conversations about the Senate. And our guest for the hour is already seated. Welcome to our audiences on KTN News and KTN Home this morning. Welcome to Kenya's biggest conversation. Peris Tobiko is the Senator, Kajiado County, and she's our guest this hour and here in the hot seat. Senator, good morning.
Good morning. I'm nominated.
Nominated
by the UDA
Senator.
party.
Yes.
Yeah. So there's an elected senator for Kajiado County.
Yes, nominated Senator Kajiado County is still. Yes. It's important to put the nominated so that we are sure of where we are playing. So definitely you cannot leave that out. Indeed, Karibu Sana.
Thank you.
We're getting into that conversation this hour. A lot is happening. There are a lot of balls in the air, and there are a lot of questions being asked in terms of what's happening.
Yeah.
And from your position, nominated, yes, but still very much in the seat when it comes to driving a number of things. So we'll be able to have that conversation this morning. CT normally welcomes everybody who comes into this room with a proverb, and they're from a different country every week.
This week our proverbs have been and still are from the country of Malawi, but the weekend's tomorrow. Now today being Thursday, the day before Friday, we tend to make our proverbs simple, easy to consume, and simple to understand. Ants die in sugar. That is the proverb of the day.
Ants.
Ants, yes. See auntie?
Ants.
Yes.
The little ants.
The little
ones. Yes.
Those ones.
Maybe they ate too much.
Aha. Voila.
Voila. What does that mean to you, Senator?
I mean, maybe too much of everything. It's not good.
It's death.
Yes. Tends to be poisoned. Yeah.
Too much of everything, indeed.
But maybe Buga can tell us if that's the right interpretation.
Actually, that's the point. You see, proverbs speak to people differently, and the reason why we ask for other people's opinions is we want to know how that proverb speaks to them. So your interpretation cannot possibly be wrong.
Oh.
Yes.
All right.
Yes, it's how you resonate with it.
All right.
Yes.
Indeed. And what it means to you.
Yeah.
Well, how about we come from your county, even as we're talking about, before we get towards what happens. What's the state of things in Kajiado County? Not too far from the center of things in terms of Nairobi, and then also instrumental in how certain things work. I guess everyone is. But speaking from a point of view of the nominated Senator Kajiado County, tell us what's going on in the county. Devolution. We've just come out of talks for the next 5 years, for the next year in terms of planning. Where are we?
Kajiado County, is a very interesting county. As you say, it's right, almost the bedroom of Nairobi. A lot of Nairobians do spend have their residential homes in Kajiado, but do work in Nairobi. And so, there's quite a high demand in Kajiado for infrastructure. There's demand for services more than ever before. Originally, Kajiado was a pastoralist sort of county, but it's changing very fast. There is an urban population that has come in and making demands, on the leadership and expecting a lot. And there's also a strain on, the available infrastructure. And so Kajiado is one county that may need to move faster than it is moving, to embrace development, even as we take care of the traditional, setup or lifestyle of the indigenous people. Yeah. And so I think Kajiado is not moving fast enough as it should. To be on top of things. The hospitals are not up to standard. There's hue and cry about the Saitoti Hospital, needs medication, needs services, needs doctors. But yes, they are moving. We are moving.
How have the politics, which have been quite strong coming out of Kajiado, then played out against this very same development that we're talking about? There's sometimes the need where we talk about the preservation of culture for Kenya, vis-a-vis developments, which is something that you've brought up now.
Yes.
But then politics somehow seems to always play in the middle of all of that. Is there a balance that can or has been started to be created whereby the preservation of culture is felt, but at the same time development agenda then starts to rise in terms of indices?
I saw the other day the county has launched a spatial plan, so maybe they are going to organize better to have, the land use properly organized and planned, so that the areas that's meant to be rangelands is kept that way, and the areas that are meant to be for industrial uses and also residential are well planned. I think that's coming out well, and that it's becoming imperative that the county embraces all dynamics, both urban and rural at the same time.
Right.
Yeah.
What are the plans for the county coming into the year? I mean, everybody went to Eldoret about a month ago, and there were the CIA DPs that were set out, and being heavily involved in that. Again, a closet county of Nairobi, but then instrumental when it comes to the general uptake of the country. What are the plans to say that, it will be a working county?
I wouldn't really want to speak for the county, because I believe the county executive, the governor and his team should be able to do that. Ours is to oversight, on the implementation of the CIDP, and to make sure that the resources that have been allocated from the national level and even on-source revenues are well spent according to budgets, according to plans. And that the resources are effectively utilized. And so ours is a lot more on the oversight.
Absolutely.
To see that they are spending well what they have received and what they have collected, from common mwananchi.
And sure. I mean, and one of the ways to do that, to oversight over whether money is being spent well, and doing audits of if they actually said that they will do what they said, that they do what they said they will do, then a little bit of knowledge of some of those plans then of course from your side definitely is necessary.
Yeah, we have seen them launching the special plan. The other day, the county government was doing a Mazingira initiative, I think just to handle the environment in terms of cleanliness and all that. I think they are on it. They're on it. Maybe just they should be a little faster than they are.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, there is always this role that we are informed is the role of Parliament.
Yes.
Both Senate and the National Assembly. Oversight.
Yes.
Now, this is the first time you are sitting and representing Kenyan people as a senator.
Yes.
Tell us about it. How is it?
Oh, okay. Thankfully, I have had a chance to, serve in both houses because I have served at the National Assembly for 10 years and now in the Senate. I like the change of environment at the moment. Both houses do oversight, okay? But the Senate, in Article 96 of the Constitution, is details the mandate of the Senate in terms of representing counties and protecting the interests of counties. The Senate will oversee the allocation of national resources. At the National Assembly for 10 years and now in the Senate.
Sorry, please go ahead.
All right. Yeah.
That's what you call a technical glitch.
Yeah. Yes. Okay. So, the Article 96 details the functions of the Senate in terms of not just oversight, but also in terms of representation of counties, protecting interests of counties, and allocating national resources to counties, and also even oversighting in terms of expenditure of own source revenues. Also, the county assemblies, of course, do the oversight over the county executive. They have the primary role. The Senate has the secondary oversight role over the counties. Basically, the Senate will do legislation that protects and promotes the interests of counties.
And how has that worked out?
So far, so good. The Senate has been on top of things. The Senate has been able actually to challenge several pieces of legislations that have been passed in the National Assembly without passing through the Senate. And the courts have, passed a judgment in favor of the Senate, around 23 pieces of legislations. So the Senate has not been, it has been on top of the game. The Senate has also, overseen, various motions on impeachment motions on governors and deputy governors. Sometimes some are well substantiated, others are not, and so either the Senate upholds the impeachment or does not, and this is part of the oversight role of the Senate.
See, why one asks that question, or rather, why I ask the question,
is
that every year when we look at the report that is issued by the Auditor General, there are very, very few issues that are pleasing to read regarding the functions of most counties. So when one says that the Senate is mandated to oversight, how often does the Senate actually use the findings of the report of the Auditor General to take these governors to task? Because some of the issues that arise are horrendous. Because the moment you talk about funds that cannot be adequately accounted for, you talk for expenditure on things that go above, way above what you may even call market rates, and it's indicated there. And yet, one sees the governors still walking scot-free. So then one has to ask the question, is the role of oversight really working?
I would say it is to a certain extent, One, when it comes in terms of legislation, as I have told you, the Senate has been on top of things. Passing the right legislation, stopping what seems to encroach on devolution matters from the National Assembly or from the National Executive. But in terms of what is going on at the counties. Now, that is where the Auditor General comes in. The Senate will then depend a lot on the reports that are coming that is coming from the Auditor General, because the Senate has not had, has not been enabled to go out there, and that is why the Senate has been asking for, an oversight fund to be able to proactively go to the ground instead of waiting. The Auditor General is at the tail end of things.
Yes.
Okay, and so these things are brought to the Senate when the damage is already done.
When they're historical.
Yes, when they're historical. So for the Senate to be proactive on the oversight and to be in real time, in catching up with a number of things at the counties, then the Senate needs not only to be just at the chamber legislating, but the Senate will also need to be at mashinani, okay, and to be able to oversee these things. This is what the bit that has been missing, because senators have not been enabled to undertake that kind of exercise.
So there's been no allocation to enable it.
There has been no allocation.
What is required for this allocation to be available?
The political goodwill. At the moment, for the first time, the president has actually talked about it in the State of the Nation address, the last State of the Nation address. The president mentioned it, that we are going to have a fund, an oversight fund for the Senate. A bit of allocation has been done in the budget now of around 500 million. That's supposed to be, rolled out. It's not yet done. I think they're still trying to put regulations in place. Maybe once this is done, we will then see the other side of the Senate trying to preempt a lot of things that are happening at the counties now.
What would it look like, Senator? So this fund comes into place today. What are we talking about? That per county there will be adjunct staff who would be hired, who would then be able to be auditors, for example, to audit systems, to audit accounts. How would that look? Would we see senators at the county level 5 out of 7 days in a week, 3 out of 5? How would that look like?
Senators will then have supporting systems, okay, including those experts, whether financial experts, whether forensic experts, whatever they are, in all sort of issues that are being handled at the counties. So what is missing is that supporting system for the senators to be able to get the information in real time. So the Senate has been depending a lot on the reports from the Auditor General, which is really when the water is past the bridge, so you find that it's too late. Of course, the Senate will mention itself on those matters and how it has gone. Every day we are having governors on one issue or another, but still, this is after the damage is done. Yeah.
Senator, my question, I'd like to know your thoughts on the Senate Oversight Fund. I believe yesterday 6 senators nominated. One of them, Honorable Crystal Asige, petitioned PSC because the 500 million, apparently how it was going to be divided was based on 47 elected senators. And only 9% of the 500 was going to go toward nominated senators. And the argument is that it is discriminatory and it is not equal access to all senators. So I'd like to know your thoughts on that particular matter.
Interesting that, you seem to be on top of your things also. I mean, yes, yesterday, the day before yesterday, we served the leadership of the Senate with a court order to stop implementation of the oversight fund until the nominated senators are brought on board, because we believe the oversight role is collective.
Yes.
We believe the definition of the Senate includes, there's no Senate minus the 20 who are nominated. Senate is a complete formation when it's the 67, okay? And we all do oversight, and not a senator does not do oversight over their own county.
Right.
We do oversight, across the board on all counties, and so also the nominated senators are in the House representing very special interests.
Sure.
Both gender, disability, and the youth, And so all these interests must be brought on board, whether it is in legislation or oversight or representation. And so it has not made sense to us that the Parliamentary Service Commission would want then to divide the House into units, the elected, the nominated.
Absolutely. That's interesting that you say that. It would be interesting for us to know then what the response has been to that citation, because the answer then could one way lead to maybe cementing of a particular belief whereby that the 20 nominated senators are often given the short end of the stick because of the overriding belief that they were granted these positions out of kind of like a political favorship. That has come to your desk, has it not?
Yes.
And so the answer from that citation could be very interesting, because if we're saying that the whole 67, it needs to be looked at in concert. But there is a belief, and I'd like to hear your thoughts about that, that the 20 who have been nominated have been given this position as a favor.
Politics is played out in different forms. Others will call the nominated flower girls.
Even when they're men.
Even when they're men. And that's the kind of perception that's out there. But I can tell you, the role of the nominated senators as part of the House, of course, is very well defined in the Constitution. And the formation of the Senate is very well defined in the Constitution. And so the nominated are there by right, are there constitutionally. And so there is no way you can then dissect the House. Today, and I wouldn't have wanted to preempt the debate that will be there today, because today we will be having a kamkunchi towards the close of business, kamkunchi with the speaker and everybody else. Hopefully, sense will come to everybody, but I believe we will. It should be well.
Okay,
and it must be well. Yes.
Do you think that the public understands your role? Because I know after the Constitution, the first term, there was a bit of a disconnect on the role of the senator. We saw senators basically interfering with the role of governors. But right now, with your particular position and having an oversight role and your relation with the public, do they understand what you're supposed to be doing in the assembly?
I believe Kenyans have also come of age, in terms of the awareness of the Constitution and what the Constitution details, what Kenyans had aspired to have in the 2010 Constitution, and the role of both houses. It's very well defined, and it's coming out well now that although governors are receiving resources, if they are not put in check, then a lot can go wrong, haywire, and so the public has come to understand the role of the senator is not only to push for resources to come to the county, but also to make sure that those resources are well expended. Yeah.
Okay, let's take a break at that point. Coming around to 7:30 on the nose, having a conversation with the nominated Senator Paris Tobiko and looking at the role, or rather the effectiveness of the Senate oversight role over the last 12 months and then moving forward. It's Kenya's biggest conversation. We'll take a break to look at weather and traffic and come back and continue thereafter.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
If a lion shows you its teeth, it doesn't mean it likes you.
It doesn't mean it likes you. It wants tax. A liar calls as witness one who is either dead or far away. Say it in Kiswahili.
Ben low, nin inte, yenin there, you markati kadikta. You know this character called liar. He has disturbed people. So when you tell him who are your witnesses, he will take you to a place where it is difficult to verify.
For someone like me who sweats a lot, I cannot survive there. Sweating is biblical. Good. And he must blame it on Adam, not me. Because Adam messed up and he was told, "Now you fellow you, by the sweat of your brow, thou shalt eat."
The Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation.
Sunny conditions in Nairobi, some part cloudy, highs of 25 and lows of 15. It's sunny at 15 in Nakuru, to go to highs of 24, and we'll see highs of 26. In a sunny Nyeri at 16. Mombasa is sunny at 25, highs of 30 and lows of 24, and we'll see lows of 25 in a sunny Malindi, going to highs of 30. It's 19 and sunny in Kisumu with highs of 28, and we'll see highs of 28 as well in a sunny Kakamega at 16. It's 18 and sunny in Kampala, highs of 27, and at 25, Dar es Salaam is mostly cloudy and it'll see highs of 29, 12 degrees and sunny in Johannesburg with highs of 27 and highs of 30 in a mostly clear Lagos at 25. It's 24 and cloudy in Kinshasa. It'll go to highs of 33 and lows of 23.
Online, mobile, and on radio. www.spiceradio.co.ke.
It's busy into the CBD this morning, and we'll see a lot of it on Uhuru Highway, getting out towards the Haile Selassie Junction and then out towards the city centre. Out to Westlands, some of that is happening. The Thika Superhighway is also busy coming in from the Outer Ring Junction. We have some traffic well beyond that in Githurai, and it's bumper to bumper. The service lanes are going to help folks. You want to think about using them. As you get then towards Wangari Maathai, it's also going to slow down a little bit. And there's incoming traffic from Chiromo, so that's something that we're going to have to contend with. Jogo Road is also busy, and we're looking at Cabana towards North Airport Road. That has piled up as we expected it to. Towards the Eastern Bypass, there's also movement here and there. Uhuru Highway is busy. It'll take you into the city. It'll be slow, but it'll get you there. So this is one of those Patience Thursdays things that needs to happen. Are you stuck somewhere? Let us know. Do you find a good route? Let us know that as well. And let's talk on Spice FM, KE on X.
Chilled Spice. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4.
Senator Paris Tobiko, and we're looking at the oversight role that Senate plays. It's been looked at many times before. We're looking at the effectiveness of the same with some of the politics that play in and out. One thing that you did mention, and one thing that we've asked questions about, is that how is it that the Auditor General will come out with such damning reports month after month? We understand years after these things have happened, and we just seem to not do anything about it. And then everybody points a finger at you, the Senate, and says, how come you're not asking these questions? The Auditor General's job is to report. That's her job, to report anomalies that she may have seen, to report non-absorption, to report those things. The job of the Senate in its oversight capacity is supposed to now look at some of these things and start to question them and recommend after that. But then it seems as though, okay, we never see action after. It's an Auditor General's report, our eyebrows are up and we say, oh my goodness, and then the dust settles and then we move on. Is that the true state of things? That Senate is not asking the questions and recommending action?
No, not at all. The Senate has been asking questions, but there are systems. As I mentioned earlier, the county assemblies are the primary, oversight bodies that should be taking the governors on a day-to-day basis, not waiting for the Auditor General's reports. They should be the whistleblowers. They should be, on top of things, then bring the attention of the Senate to these matters. If that does not happen, then the Senate will rely a lot more on the Auditor General's report, which, as I said, comes at the very tail end. That is why the Senate has been proactively, trying to establish a system that will enable the Senate, to be on the ground, to be able to pick up things, to be able to, get the necessary antennas, to be able to point out things when they are still happening and when they can be stopped, in order to take preemptive measures instead of coming at the very tail end when we'll just all be screaming that this has happened and it's water under the bridge. And so the Senate has been tightening the loose ends in terms of legislation. The Senate has been, very proactive in telling the national government to let go of functions that belong to the counties. Unbundling the functions and also for resources to follow the functions.
Right.
This much, that far, the Senate has done very well. The Senate has also taken petitions from various counties and members of county assemblies when they do arise. Those ones have been handled. So far, quite a number have come to the Senate and they've been handled well. Yes, there's still a system that should be supportive to the senator or the collective body of the Senate to be able to do its oversight role in real time.
Right.
That is what needs to be now established. And I want to believe when this oversight fund is put in place and is rolled out, then the Senate the performance of the Senate will go a notch higher. Yeah.
From what I hear you saying,
yes,
there is a lot that could be done.
Yes.
To make the Senate far more effective. What are these things? What needs to be done? If you are given a wish list and you told Mheshimiwa,
yes,
we are going to do what you ask.
Yes.
So these things that you would ask for, what are they? That's question one.
Yeah.
1B, when these things are granted, what will a powerful Senate look like, and what then will it actually be able to do?
Okay. This is what will happen. A supporting system that will then get information in real time. As I said, maybe have various experts right from the ground, establish that system so that the Senate has its own system that's working for the Senate, besides the county assemblies, because we rely a lot on the county assemblies. And that's why we have the annual legislative forum to try and educate and do a capacity building of the assemblies so that they do that. So besides the county assemblies, the Senate may need its own system up to the ground that then brings information forward, that then puts the Senate, on top of things, that the Senate will then be able, from Kajiado, this is what we see. From Wajir, this is what we see. From Mantera, this is what is coming. Once we have that kind of system, then in terms of legislation, in terms of closing loopholes, the Senate will be able to move much faster. We have seen a situation whereby the Senate committees do need to go to various counties, and you're told there is no budgetary allocation. Even collectively, there is no budgetary allocation, so you can't move. And there has been almost like a number of months where the committees could not move because there are no budgetary allocations for the committees to go to the counties. Then that really disempowers the Senate, makes it, just maybe a legislative body, but when it comes to oversight, it's hampered. Yeah.
Is that intentional? From what you're saying, do you see it as an intentional action to essentially suppress the potency of the Senate? Because what we're saying here is that if an oversight role was effective as what it should be, we wouldn't actually see a lot of the mishaps that we see taking place at that level. So would it, from your point of view, is it something that's intentionally hampered in order for us to not see the power that has actually been given to Senate to oversight play out?
Maybe not. Maybe not. Let me start from a positive angle. Maybe not. Maybe it has been that, over time, we are getting to understand the Constitution better. The national government is yet to appreciate what devolution should be all about. Maybe also it's a bit difficult to let go what they have been used to holding at the ministries. Let's say the Ministry of Health is not ready to let go some functions that belong to the counties and all that. But I think, and I could be biased on this one, maybe the new the Ruto government, we have seen really a lot of goodwill. When there was the summit at Naivasha and the agreements that were made with the governors on the functions that the national government is going to release, the unbundling, I think we have seen a lot happening. And two, we have also seen the national government releasing all the allocations for this financial year to the counties, with something that has never happened. So you realize maybe with time, the various governments are getting to understand really that it makes even their job easier to give counties what is due to them, and also maybe the national government is also coming to realize the importance of the role of the Senate, and that will help us when everybody understands the role of the other to be complementary, to be, just that we will make things better. We will be able to watch over things better for the benefit of Kenyans. Then I think everybody will let go what they should let go. Yeah.
Why I keep asking this question is this. It's not possible to underestimate the role of the county governments.
Yes.
Because even when you look at it in principle, it is the one tool that can actually bring the sort of development Kenyans have yearned for since independence and bring it to the level of where the Mwananchi is, that's at the MCA level. Now, again, if there is no oversight, then there's absolutely no guarantee that the things that are supposed to be done will be done.
Are happening, yeah.
Yes, now, if you have a Senate that is hamstrung, right from the very beginning, this question, we're asking it for the third time. One has to speculate, is it deliberate? Because if Senate was actually as powerful as it should be, then what will it mean?
Yes.
Beyond the county, what else will they be able to do? Yes. Because the National Assembly has failed on very many accounts when it comes to the role of oversight. So we are doubtful as citizens.
Yes.
Truly and sincerely doubtful about the ability to look after our interests, especially with regards to the function of oversight. Now, it was assumed that when you have an upper house, that was what the Senate was envisioned to be, that they would also provide oversight over things that the National Assembly was doing.
Yes.
So there would be a check and balance. Now, right now, there is none. And if there is, it's tenuous. It's not something you can speak about. Because if it existed, then the Auditor General's report would have been very different. Every year, we wouldn't be reading what we read. Because most of what we read in the Auditor General's reports are horror stories. You do the maths, and you're thinking, this equals a school building, this equals a hospital, this equals a commodity in a hospital, this equals a road network, and all of it gone. And yet, the people who would ensure that this ought to be done don't have the wherewithal to do it. So the question of, is it deliberate, unfortunately, has to be at the forefront of our thinking.
And was it originally designed so that in such a way, on paper, it looks as though you serve an oversight role, but we all know that clipping of wings is not something that you have to tell somebody, I am going to clip your wings, before you know that your wings are clipped. So was it designed that way? And again, we have to ask the question, was it then, or is it overall stifling devolution in the way in which it's supposed to?
And just as I said, I would wish to look at it positively, that maybe the intention is not to clip the wings. Maybe people have not we've been rolling out devolution. Maybe different governments had not understood the benefits of having a strong Senate, okay? But today, I see like the current government is going to enable the Senate, as has already been, indicated, that the oversight fund will be rolled out, okay? If that is done, then maybe things will be different. But even with limited resources, the Senate has been able to do so much. The Senate has been able to stop legislation that would otherwise have gone through without the participation of the Senate. The Senate has been able to look at various counties, impeach governors who, they felt the motions were well substantiated, have performed below expectations, and have gone against the spirit of the law and devolution. The Senate has been able to do quite a bit, and it's part of the oversight role. And so I think it's just going to be better. I would not want to be pessimistic, that it's intentional to clip the Senate. If that is the case, then it's very unfortunate. Yeah.
There were two bodies that were created at the time when we were promulgating our new constitution.
Yeah.
Their role, one was supposed to superintend and midwife the implementation of the constitution. One was to shepherd, and again midwife, the actual processing of devolution, not just the implementation. Now, the lifespan of these bodies, I think, did not go beyond 5 years.
The Transitional Authority?
Yes, and the Constitutional Implementation Commission.
Yes.
Now,
yes.
I have wondered loudly, and I'm wondering loudly again, how is it that something as enormous as the Constitution, which is going to affect our lives for decades to come, the body that is supposed to superintend and ensure that the implementation is in accordance with the law and the wishes, expires after 5 years. The Transitional Authority, which was supposed to again do the very same thing to determine national government, county government, and everything is therein, are again shepherded, extinguished. So who is there to ensure that these processes take place when the two bodies that were supposed to ensure that these things happen in an orderly manner, in a structured manner, don't exist or were made not to exist? So it's like just when they began their work and they also began to understand it, they ceased to exist.
But really, like the transitional authority, and I want to believe also the constitutional implementation, yes, had a time span.
That time span is my problem. It was too short.
Yes. And then the transitional authority was replaced by IGRTC.
How's that working?
Okay. It's struggling.
It's not struggling, it's drowning.
So IGRTC came in to take over the duties of the transitional authority.
Right.
And as he says, I'm saying it's struggling. He's saying it's drowning.
Yes.
But really, basically, that's the law. That's what we put in place. This one expires by this time.
Bring in another one.
My point exactly. It's deliberate. Because when those timelines were being put, other timelines could have
So are we as Kenyans then shooting ourselves on the foot?
Yes, we... No. Someone is shooting my foot on my behalf.
Who is it?
Yes.
Actually, I wanted to add that Wachira Wainaina, the constitutional lawyer, always argues that the Senate and the lack of allocation of resources was a huge miss in the Constitution, and actually pushing for an amendment to that. And I recognizing the need, but also there's the question of our culture, because we've seen people coming in as Senate, and even when I think senator, if I look at the US, it's this stereotype of older, someone who has someone who has seen how a country has developed to give advice. But in Kenya, it's a completely different culture, because you see people coming in as Senate, then they transition into governor, or they even sometimes transition into member of parliament.
It's an aspirational position.
It is. It's like MCA for older people with resources, and really, and some of them look at it as a stepping stone. But it's also questionable in terms of whether people who go for that particular position also understand the importance of that particular position. So it would be interesting to hear from you when you enter the Senate seat. What next for a lot of senators?
Interesting.
The senator has explained.
It's interesting. I can tell you that there are those senators who went in and actually believed they could, be like that American senator, and they have performed very well. But also, they have graduated. Some of them have graduated into governors. The Orengos of this world. What's the name of this guy Wabarua? The Muranga guy.
Kangata.
Irungu,
yes.
Irungu Kangata. Quite a number of them have graduated into governance. Because, sometimes you realize, okay, we are passing this good legislation. But if at the other end, nobody is implementing as they should, you almost feel like taking the challenge and say, okay, enough of the good laws we have made and they are being shelved. Now, I am going to be the implementer. Okay? And so don't be surprised.
If you see a governor coming from a senator,
if you see myself going for governor, because I believe, I believe I could go do now implementation as it should be done, according to the Constitution. Because I understand what devolution is meant to be all about. I have passed the laws in the Senate. Okay? Someone may not be doing his job well. Or it is a time to go do the actual job. Roll your sleeves and work for the people.
Indeed, but somebody does have to ask the questions in terms of accountability and making sure that these funds that counties struggle to get and that the promises that are made and the contracts that you sign in terms of performances are actually carried out. Do you think that there is more room for awareness and agitation to be made when we're talking about this fund? Because truth be told, if we're saying that the reason why we've not seen the Senate function live out to its proper potential is because of a fund, then I would assume that agitation and clamor for this fund will be a lot louder than what we hear today.
Because, I agree with you. I do agree with you. Minus the funds. Here is the senator. You could be the senator for Migori or wherever. Yeah?
You decided to take me to Migori. Okay?
Yes.
I will go.
Migori-esque.
Okay, I'm just giving an example. Or you could be the senator for Kajiado.
No, that's...
Yeah. Here you are.
Yes.
Only with your payslip and your one vehicle and driver. And that's it. Okay, that's for you. For you, the person. All right? Then what about the office? What about, the system that should...
I should ask, do you have an office? Do you, is it staffed?
Does
the government provide senators with offices?
Yes.
Staff members?
You have for a nominated member, you have 3 people.
3 people?
Yes, you have a bodyguard, you have a driver, and you have a PA. That's it.
Okay.
Narima thinks that's a lot of people.
No, I don't. I'm wondering.
You're wondering how you're getting the job done.
Yes, and you're supposed to oversight the entire country.
Yes, the county.
Okay, not the county, the entire country. Okay, you're supposed to know what's happening in Wajir. You're supposed to know what's happening in Nakuru. You're supposed to know what's happening in Migori and what's happening in Nairobi. The governors have the resources, enough resources to do the job if they wanted to do the job, and also enough resources to stifle whatever they want to stifle.
Yes, they do.
You get it?
They do.
Yeah.
But they're also in a position where they fully you see, this is a thing that here the Senate complaining obviously about the fact that we don't have enough, right? In terms of resources, capacity, whatever it may be. But guess what?
Yes.
The county bosses know this too.
Yes, they do.
They're fully aware that you don't have the power to do the job of oversight as it should be.
Yes.
So isn't this a stomping ground for so much to happen? Because they know that even if you, Paris Tobiko, wants to come out in an oversight role, powerful as ever, they know that you don't have the equipment to do this.
They know. They're very well aware. They are very well aware, and of course they will take advantage of this situation, unfortunately so. And so as Kenyans we should be serious, and not just for the Senate, any oversight body, really, including the Auditor Generals, including any other oversight body, they should be well enabled. It should be functional.
Senator, the Kenyan people do their bit.
Yes.
We provide our elected leaders with an environment where we don't bother them too much. And we also don't ask too much.
Yes.
And the little that we ask is not given. So what do they think will happen when we actually start bothering them? Because we allow you to do your things. And it doesn't happen. So when we decide, okay, these guys don't seem to understand what they're supposed to do, so why don't we assist them? What do you think?
Kenyans, are interesting people. Kenyans, in every 5-year circle, have a chance to do the right thing.
We may not wait for 5 years.
Really?
Yes.
I would want to see that kind of situation. Because anyway, I know the stipulated constitutional period of 5 years, where Kenyans who are tired and annoyed with the kind of leadership that's in place have the chance to do an overhaul
of all of this,
and just change things. But the more we Kenyans are given the chance to do that, the more things remain the same.
Interesting note to end on. Nominated Senator Paris Tobiko, thank you for being our guest this morning. Many things to be thinking about moving forward. It would be interesting to hear the sound of agitation get a little bit louder so that we're all aware of what's going on. Thank you for being our guest on Kenya's Biggest Conversation this morning. And we look forward to having you again in the future. Asante sana.
Thank you. Thank you, my dear.
Conversations continue right after this. It's 8 o'clock.
Spice up your life.
This is Nitwam Dennis Aseto. The National Dialogue Committee resumes its sittings today at the Bomas of Kenya. This as tension is expected following the latest demands by Azimio. Azimio's latest demand is the suspension of the implementation of the Finance Act 2023. According to Azimio, this is to ensure that the government addresses the rising cost of living in the presence of high taxes. Another issue that Azimio wants to be implemented before proceeding with the negotiations is to be allowed to punish its members in both houses without interference from the speakers. Governor Simba Arati has criticized the Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua for his previous statement regarding the government's move to withdraw security of opposition leaders when they were leading their followers to protest against the rising cost of living. Addressing the residents of Nyeri in Bomachoge, Burabu constituency, Kisii County, during the launch of a factory for collecting and storing produce, an activity led by Trade CS Moses Kuria, Arati vowed not to change its political position to satisfy anyone and said that Gachagua remarks aimed at humiliating opposition leaders cannot be allowed. Arati has also criticized Gashagua's remarks that the Kenya Kwanza government only aims to benefit the community that invested in the Kenya Kwanza government during the last election.
Huyo ambaye anaongea shares anatuambia governors you must behave ndiposa mpate askari wenu. Me I don't need police officers. Hao wananchi ni askari wa kutosha. I'm not going to behave anytime soon to please the Deputy President. I'm not. I'm going to do what these people have sent me to do with my conscience.
These as Kisii farmers have now found a relief following the official launch of a storage facility at Tongeri village in Bomachoge. CS Trade Moses Kuria has said that the government aims to export the produce to foreign countries while the rest is stored well in the refrigerators and the storage facilities. Kuria has also said that the government will build machinery to grind the crops that will be left after the others are sold in major cities in the country in order to remove the brokers who benefit from harassing the farmers.
Vile tuliwaambia mambo ya export mtakuwa hapa. Hata kama huwezi kuwa na hiyo packaging tutaleta hapa mtumie nyote. Hata ile refrigerator, cold rooms. Hii industrial park itakuwa na cold room ndio mazao yenu isipotee. Na hii mambo yote mimi niko na hakika itabadilisha sura na uchumi ya hii Kisii County.
Now, the Red Crossers began collaborating with various counties in preparation for the El Nino rains that are expected from next month in North Rift. The organization expects El Nino rain to affect more than 90,000 families in Elgeyo Marakwet, Nandi, Turkana, West Pokot, Trans Nzoia and Bungoma counties. Residents in the area have already been ordered to move, while some are asking the government to help them move and find alternative shelter. That being the case in Trans Nzoia County, CEC Agriculture Fanis Khatundi has asked the farmers to expect new grain drying machines following the program developed by the county government.
Naenda kukuwa na bumper harvest. The only issue yenye tuko nayo ni El Nino. Pia tuko na changamoto, we only have one functional dryer ambapo yuko sehemu za Cherengani. So unaona hiyo iwezi serve county yote. So kama county tumejipanga tuhakikishe kuwa kwa kila sub county kuna dryer moja, na hizo ni effort za governor ameshirikiana na national government, but kama wakulima waweze kuanika mahindi na hii jua ya asubuhi kabla mvua ianze ili kuzuia kuoza kwingi, na kama inawezekana pia waweze kutoa kwenye shamba mapema.
The National and Kilifi County governments through the Transport Department have been asked to take strict legal action against small public transport vehicles that do not have the required permits. According to the chairperson of the Public Service Vehicles in Malindi, Justin Matano, some small private vehicles have been carrying passengers and that the drivers are serving without the requisite documents.
Sisi kama wafanyabiashara wa uchukuzi, kuna hizi gari ndogo za private. Hizi gari zetu zimepigwa vita na hizi gari ndogo kwa muda mrefu. Tumejaribu kufanya mikutano na county government, national government, lakini hatujafaulu. Gari ndogo zinabeba abiria 10, 11, ili hali hazina stakabadhi ambazo zinaruhusiwa kwa barabarani. Madereva na stakabadhi kwa barabarani. Tungeomba swala hili pia serikali lijaribu kuangazia kwa sababu gari zetu nyingi zimenyuma biashara.
This is Newswire. Dennis Aseto, good morning.
.5 Spice FM, Kisumu.
Okay, round about a few minutes after 8 o'clock, and let's see what traffic looks like now. Okay, so we had a bit of a hold up on the Thika Superhighway. Not a little bit, actually quite a lot of that. It's coming in from Githurai, and then we're seeing that going all the way through towards that Outer Ring Junction, out towards the Pangani Underpass, and it's bumper to bumper. As you get into Moranga Road, it's moving really slowly. The service lanes will help at some point, but as you get to that tunnel, everybody's stuck and we're just going to have to go with it right about there. All right, so we're also looking at traffic coming off of Limuru Road, coming in from Village Market, United Nations Avenue, out past the hospital, and then joining Wangari Maathai with that traffic that's going to go through towards Chiromo or then go towards the CBD. Let's look at Cabanas and then also touching on North Airport Road, going towards the Eastern Bypass. That continues to move. Mombasa is not doing too badly until you get to Capital Centre. It's going to slow down a little bit as you're trying to approach Uhuru Highway, getting through towards Haile Selassie at the junction. Okay, traffic hour proper is where we are right now. Not looking too bad on Langata Road, but keep an eye open for that. Gong Road is also flowing free and fair as you get towards the city mortuary roundabout. An eye on everything. Let's see what happens as we get closer towards the end of traffic hour, and let's talk on Spice FM KE on X.
This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Oko, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latif, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is The Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
Okay, good morning and welcome. Getting into the third hour of Kenya's biggest conversation at a few minutes after 8 o'clock. Our audiences on KTN Home and KTN News, Karibu Sana, as we continue with this conversation this morning. All right, getting into a Justice Thursday's conversation, and coming off of that, our guest is already seated in the studio this morning, and as we look at conversations around land, they're big ones, they are emotive ones, they seem to engulf everybody when we discuss them. And this morning, the mandate of the Land Acquisition Tribunal is what is up for discussion, and Dr. Nabil Orina, who is the chairperson of the Land Acquisition Tribunal, is here with us this morning on this Justice Thursday conversation. Good morning.
Good morning.
How are you?
Fine, thank you.
Karibu Sana to Kenya's biggest conversation.
Thanks for having me.
We're getting into it this morning, and we'll welcome people with a proverb, and CT does the honors.
The whole of this week, the week of course ending tomorrow, proverbs are from the country of Malawi, formerly Nyasaland, formerly before that former British Central Africa Protectorate, currently Malawi. They have a president.
They do.
Yes, they do. It's actually called Lazarus Chakwera. They even have a vice president. They don't have the burden of a deputy president, just a vice president. Saulo Chilema is his name. And then...
We see what you did there.
Yeah, we saw. We got it.
But okay. You may
Right.
carry on.
Well, speaker. Let's have a speaker. Now, they've mixed it up nicely. It's a lady by the name of Catherine Otani Hare. All right? Oh, they got the independence around the same time we did. Okay? So one could say that we are age mates.
You and Malawi.
Oh,
Kenya.
No, I'm older than Malawi.
Sorry.
Right. The proverb for the day: ants die in sugar. Ants, A-N-T-S, not auntie, not your father's sister. Ants die in sugar. Simple, straightforward proverb for a Thursday, the day before Friday.
Not bad.
Not bad.
Dr. Rina, does it make some sense to you?
Yeah. Ants die in sugar. Basically, I would see it as that which you like so much sometimes can be your downfall, can lead to your downfall. That's how I would see it. Ouch.
So beautifully executed. I mean, see, I thought it was a simple proverb. Can you see how it has been simply explained? And to the point.
Such a truth, though, man. The thing that you like so much can kill you.
Yeah. The thing you actually enjoy
Too
so
much of it.
Too much of it.
Too much of it.
Kill you.
Too much of it can kill you. Okay. You can be incensed with it. It can take over your being. It can make you do things that, you would normally not do naturally. And then you could die. And we've seen that with a lot of land issues in this country, isn't it? And people normally say that the issue of land incenses people to the point whereby sometimes we are bereft of all proper thinking, and it's a really emotive issue, the one thing that you can hold on to. And even as we look at that and those matters, the Land Acquisition Tribunal apparently is a body. And we want to start to figure out, what exactly is that? What is, before we even look at the mandate of it and what you do, what exactly is the Land Acquisition Tribunal?
Okay, thank you for that. I would explain what the Land Acquisition Tribunal is by, first of all, taking a step back and asking what is this acquisition that we're talking about. The acquisition that is in the law is the compulsory acquisition, which then now necessitates the Land Acquisition Tribunal. Under the Constitution, the right to own property is protected and can only be deprived. Someone can only be deprived of his right to own property in accordance with Article 40, Sub-Article 3, if it is compulsorily acquired by government, which means that if the government has a public interest for which it wishes to take some private land to pursue the public interest, then it can compulsorily acquire your property. So the constitutional provision, which is Article 40, Sub-Article 3, states that then if government has to do this, there has to be a law, to enable it to do this, and there has to be recourse for someone who's affected, the property owner, in order to go before a court of law and to test whether the acquisition is in compliance with the law. And that is where the Land Acquisition Tribunal comes in. So the Land Act then gives the mandate of listening to grievances arising from compulsory acquisition of private land by government to the Land Acquisition Tribunal. So if a government has an intention to compulsorily acquire your land, say to build a school or to build a road, then you have a right to come before the Land Acquisition Tribunal to either say that the process of acquiring this land was not proper, or the purpose for which this land was acquired was not a public purpose. Similarly, you can approach the tribunal and say, because the requirement is that if government takes your land compulsorily, and this is a concept that is known as eminent domain, then they have to give you just compensation. They have to compensate you for the land they've taken. So you can also come to the tribunal and say that government expressed an interest in taking my land, but the offer of compensation they have given me is not sufficient. Hence, now the tribunal can resolve the questions that you bring
up.
Yeah.
You've used the term compulsorily quite some.
Yes.
And compulsorily to me appears like something that you have no choice but to do. In what circumstances would government come and take your land, or at least express interest to take your land compulsorily?
The Constitution states that government can only take private land, can only deprive a private owner of their land if there is a public interest or there is a public function for which that land is required. So government cannot take your private land so that you can sell it to someone else. Your private land can only be taken if there's need to expand the road.
Or like build the SGR.
Yeah, to put an SGR station. And government requires that land. So, and government has that eminent domain in terms of, of acquiring land in this regard. So it comes to you and says, this land would be required to expand public facility that is here, and by acquiring it, then we will compensate you to put you as close as possible to the position in which you are. You could probably acquire land somewhere else, or in the alternative, it's also provided in the law that the government can offer you alternative land as compensation if it's acceptable to you, so that then that land is taken and it's used for the public purpose for which it was intended to be used.
So it's the government that determines that the land you own and where it's domiciled is useful to them in the manner that is prescribed by law, isn't it? So I can't tell the government, look, I have land, please come and acquire it compulsorily because I think it would be good for this school. I can't do that.
No, you can't do that. Actually, the process of compulsory acquisition of land begins from an acquiring entity. What is an acquiring entity, which can be either a county government or a national government, writing to the National Land Commission and saying, we wish to compulsorily acquire this particular piece of land because it will be useful for us for, ABC function. And then the National Land Commission has to certify that indeed the purpose for which the national government or the county government wishes to acquire the land is for a public use, and then it initiates the process of now compulsory acquisition. So you cannot approach government to say that I wish to sell or to give my land to you.
Can you refuse if government comes to you and wants to compulsorily acquire your land because it is yours as a private individual? Can you refuse?
You can't refuse if all the, constitutional and legal criteria has been met, and that is that the land is for a particular public purpose, the procedure for acquiring has been followed to the letter, and the compensation that has been given to you is just compensation. And that is why, because it's a rights issue, your right to own property, and that's why there is an avenue for you now to complain, to say, for instance, you have a right to go to court and say, this acquisition of land, this compulsory acquisition of land should just be nullified because it was not undertaken properly. Because I do not think the purpose for which government wishes to acquire this land is not, for public use. But you cannot refuse if the criteria set in the Constitution and the law has been satisfied.
What you're saying, or rather what I hear you to be saying, is that there is a tribunal, right?
Yes.
The tribunal presupposes that somewhere along the line, in this clearly laid out situation you've described, there will be malpractices.
Indeed. The fact that you have an avenue to ventilate an issue you could have is evidence that along the line, the procedure might not be followed to the letter, or someone might, undertake a shortcut in acquiring your property, or probably the intended use of this land is not for public use, or the amount that that the government has proposed to offer you in compensation does not meet the criteria of just compensation. So essentially, that is why the tribunal exists. Not necessarily that there could be foul play, but just to check, just as a mechanism to check that everything is done in accordance with the law, because your right to land should essentially be upheld and respected. So for someone to take away your land, then it must check all the boxes.
Daktari, beyond the extrajudicial killings in this country, road accidents, death by disease, deaths that arise over land issues in this country are significant.
Indeed.
Yes. So there are errors that can be said to be human errors. A mistake was made. Someone did not intend to. But then, who are we to speak? You understand these matters. Yeah. The matters that one comes across on a daily basis as you go about your daily business. What are the ones which are preeminent? What are the issues that keep coming up over and over and over again with regards to this very thing we're discussing?
Thank you for that. It can also be an issue that when government was coming to acquire this land and trying to identify the ownership of this, the particular land that is being compulsorily acquired, they did not identify the correct ownership. The person was identified as the owner is not, the owner of the property. That is one of the errors that unfortunately also might occur, but then the tribunal's mandate might not extend to determining disputes over ownership. But there could also arise another issue where it's stated in the acquisition that the amount of property, the amount of land that has been acquired is of a particular acreage, but the land that has been acquired is more than the land that the government has stated would be required for the particular purpose. It can also be the case that if government comes to you and says, we want to acquire half an acre of your land for expansion of a road, but this is a property that you intended to build a house, in a nice compound, and beautify it. So the remaining half acreage of the property is useless, basically.
Yes.
And you'd come to the tribunal to say, government should have acquired the whole piece of property because whatever has remained is not fit for the purpose for which I intended to use it for. So these are some of the issues that can arise in terms of, the process and what kind of compensation you acquire from, the property that has been compulsorily acquired. Yeah.
Let me ask a different question.
Yes.
What if I want to acquire land from the government? Because government has lots of land.
Yes. There are other mechanisms which are not involved because that is essentially the reverse of compulsory acquisition.
Precisely. But now yes. I want to acquire, I want to buy, I want to pay for it, but it's government land.
Well, there are processes of allotment of land, and you would have to apply. And if land wishes to, if government then is okay to allot you some land, and then you pay the required rates and rent for a particular period, because then that you would get at least for a property to do whatever you've asked to do with that property. Let's say, for instance, you want it's a property near the port, and you wish to lease it so that you could have a go down there and store your stuff for a number of years, 5-10 years. The government can lease the property to you with certain conditions, and you have to comply with the conditions. And if you fail to comply with the conditions, then they can take the property back.
Okay.
That is a transaction that can still be done the same way you can do a private transaction with a private landowner.
I think my question would be, so I'm hearing about the tribunal for the first time, and I know a lot of, especially young people. How do we get to you? What's the process like? if I feel the situation was unfairly done. Just explain to me how I get to you.
Okay. Indeed, although the tribunal came about through an amendment which was referred to as a Land Value Amendment Act in the year 2019, the tribunal has only been operationalized this year by my appointment. I'm actually the first chair of the tribunal.
Okay.
So previously, before the tribunal was appointed, anybody who was aggrieved still had a right to go before the Environment and Land Court.
Okay.
You would file your claim there, and the Environment and Land Court should issue a decision. Actually, most of the decisions existing that have developed jurisprudence around this come from the Environment and Land Court, which is of the status of a high court. But now, since the tribunal has been operationalized, the first port of call is going to be the tribunal. You cannot go to the Environment and Land Court if you have a grievance from a compulsory acquisition of land. And matters arising out of this, we are going to put out an announcement, I think tomorrow, across newspapers, as well as it will be shared to other stakeholders on how you can file a claim before the Land Acquisition Tribunal. It will be the filing system is the one that the judiciary uses. All claims will be filed virtually, and there will be contacts on someone to assist in case someone has challenges in filing, because now the judiciary has really gone virtual in terms of filings, and so that if anyone has a claim, let's say in any part of the country, you can log into the digital platform of the judiciary, find under the Land Acquisition Tribunal, be able to upload your documents, and it reflects immediately with the secretariat from the Registrar of Tribunals, who are assisting at least to manage the administrative bit of it, and then that claim is transmitted to the respondents, and they put in the responses, and then once it comes to us, then we do the next steps. Most of the hearings are going to be virtual. To ensure that at least there is accessibility, because these tribunals also are part of enhancing access to justice. So that if someone has filed a claim from Mombasa, they do not need to struggle that, the tribunal today is sitting in Kisumu, because there's only one tribunal composed of 3 members. So we're not saying that there's a panel sitting in Kisumu, Kisii, Nyamira, etc. So if someone has filed a claim, you can get a hearing date. You log in virtually. We have a claim from Mombasa, from Kisumu, the same day, and they can all be heard virtually. In limited cases, the tribunal might have to visit certain areas, to ensure that at least there's accessibility, because sometimes the use of technology can enhance accessibility, but in other cases you can limit it, because there are people who do not have access to the proper facilities. So in such instances, then the tribunal can go to where the matters have arisen, and they can have a physical hearing there. Yeah, so that kind of flexibility then ensures that nobody is left out from accessing the tribunal.
Okay, so you mentioned that the tribunal is relatively young, about a year, just under a year. So have you actually started to hear cases?
No, actually, I was appointed 2 weeks ago.
Oh, wow.
Oh, you're like brand spanking new. Okay.
Very.
Yes, I am. So, but now we have put in the proper mechanisms to ensure that at least parties can file, develop the proper standards for filing of the cases, and to ensure that at least we're now ready to go in terms of receiving cases and hearing them expeditiously. I must note also that the law that establishes the tribunal gives the tribunal 60 days to hear and determine matters. And one of the things that we've had a challenge with in this country is the long delay in courts for matters, and for the legislature to have come up with this tribunal is to ensure that there's expeditious hearing and disposal of matters, and because of the nature of land cases. And we already have an environment and land code which has several other land-related disputes. As was stated here, that land is very emotive. So by removing this component from the environment and land code and putting it in a tribunal and requiring that the matter be heard within a period of 60 days is to ensure that at least there is a quick dispensation of justice.
Sure, and then also maybe giving rise to the notion that there is quite a lot then in terms of disputes when it comes to individuals and government land, but we can look at that in more detail when we come back from this break. The brand new chairperson of the Land Acquisition Tribunal is Dr. Nabil Orina, and he's here with us on this Justice Thursday's conversation to find out, okay, so the government is compulsorily buying land from you. What can you do if you feel that there's something that has gone wrong or that you're not fairly compensated? Those are questions that we're asking this morning, and we'll be back after this break.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
Good morning, and I love your show.
Thank you.
Having come from a Kikuyu radio background, I migrated to Spice because of the content.
I was born in a slum, but somehow I got a break in life. So sometimes when you see the sweating coming out because of the passion and whatever it is, behind the noise, there are people, and we share the same umbilical cord.
It shouldn't be like that. I am so disappointed. We used to tell Honorable Raila Amolo Odinga that he's doing politics of conmanship, and even President Uhuru Kenyatta, serikali hii ndio iko na conmanship ya hali ya juu. You cannot promise people that you reduce tax then you double.
In politics, there is the issue of trust. For you to turn around and then stab the same people who gave you that trust, there is no other level of dishonesty. And hii mambo utaona dunia tu.
The Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation.
Looking at partly sunny conditions in Nairobi, highs of 25 and lows of 15, and we'll see highs of 25 and lows of 14 in a sunny Nakuru. The sun is up at 17 in Nyeri, highs of 27, and we'll see highs of 22 in a sunny Eldoret. 26 degrees in Mombasa, it'll go to highs of 31, and we'll see highs of 28 in Malindi, highs of 30 in Malindi rather, where it's currently sunny. 21 and sunny in Kisumu, highs of 30, and we'll see highs of 28 in a sunny Kakamega. 19 and sunny conditions in Kampala, highs of 27, and it'll go to highs of 28 in Dar es Salaam, where it's sunny at 27. Looking into a partly cloudy and partly sunny Johannesburg, it's 19 degrees, highs of 27, and Lagos, it's clear at 25, it'll go to highs of 30. Kinshasa will see highs of 33, it's currently cloudy at 24.
Spice up your life.
Kind of busy on the Thika Superhighway this morning as you're coming in from that Githurai area out then towards Outer Ring at the junction. Service lanes are working this morning, and folks are able to use that until you get to the Pangani underpass. That's going to slow down just a little bit. Uhuru Highway is busy as you're going towards the CBD and out towards Westlands. Speaking of Westlands, James Gishuru at the Drift, some of that is spilling over towards Waiaki Way, but nothing too crazy. You can handle this. And then as you come in on Uhuru Highway, if you're coming in from Mombasa Road out towards Capital Centre, you get to the Nyeri Stadium roundabout. It's going to slow down just a tad, and your junctions of Lusaka, and then getting to Bunyala, and then Haile Selassie, that's busy. Jago Road towards Landis also doing the thing this morning. Kamkunji at the roundabout is pretty busy as well. Traffic hour things, and we'll get out of it in a bit. Let us know what might be looking a bit sticky, and we'll talk on Spice FM KE on X.
Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
Coming in at 26 minutes to 9 a.m., having a conversation with the chairperson of the Land Acquisition Tribunal, new one. Dr. Nabil Orina is with us this morning on a Justice Thursday conversation. I'm looking at access to justice, and we have heard the Chief Justice numerous occasions talking about we need to simplify access to justice. Number two, we need to then make it widely accessible. So those two things, simplify it and let everybody have access. Now, when we remove this component of the government acquiring land from you as an individual from the Environment and Land Court, then it occurs to me that perhaps it is a recurrent issue and that there are several issues around this particular component. For it to be removed and a tribunal set out solely for this purpose, that has happened. Does that mean that there are very many cases around this particular issue whereby individuals would have an issue with government and how they acquired their land?
It is the case that even the Constitution, by separating the High Court from other specialized courts, that is the Environment and Land Court and the Employment and Labor Relations Court, was also trying to ensure that each court would deal with the specialized matters and ensure that indeed there is a quicker dispensation of justice. But when it comes to tribunals and the Land Acquisition Tribunal, and it contributes to access to justice in a manner that this is a judicial organ, but not a very formal way of coming to court. More of an administrative organ to deal with questions that are more administrative in nature before you can end up in court. Because then if you are dissatisfied with the decision of the tribunal, you have a right to go to the Environment and Land Court on appeal, but only on matters of law. So tribunals contribute to access to justice because of how they operate in terms of regulating their own procedure, not strictly following the set rules of procedure and evidence, strict timelines, and this is also in regard to I believe which has been discussed in this show, the Small Claims Court, yes, which then was necessitated by the fact that there are some disputes which are of a lesser nature, but they are stuck up in the court system. So instead of having questions about compensation for land that has been compulsorily acquired, stuck up in the court system for years, then you put them in a tribunal where someone knows that if I'm dissatisfied, I can approach this tribunal and I can have a determination within 60 days. So that enhances access to justice. And because land is a big component of a driver of the economy, then people want to know that issues around this land that is being taken away from them are quickly resolved. And also because sometimes land, when government wants to acquire your land, it could have been the only property that you had, but government has said that in their plans they want to build this infrastructure which will serve the community, and they've taken the only piece of land that you had. You cannot wait for 2 years before you resolve a dispute in regard to how much you should have been paid.
I think my question would be, is there plans to have an awareness campaign with people in the community, in the grassroots, and which sort of stakeholders would you be looking to collaborate with? Because even thinking about the narrative of basically taking government to court is not a easy thing, and you know how it is, especially in rural areas. People tend to be afraid of going against and just saying, whatever we receive, equal to, we have that mentality of appreciate what you've gotten, at least you're alive, because there's that fear, that sense of fear of authority. So I'm curious to know if there's a plan to educate the public that this is accessible and it's also affordable and you're also reachable.
Yes, indeed, the whole aim would be to reach out to as many stakeholders as possible, and we're starting. This is our first official, reaching out and trying to do sensitization about the tribunal. But then also, what we will do as a tribunal is to simplify the procedure of approaching. If you have a claim and you have an appeal from this compulsory acquisition, so that then it's as accessible as possible, not just because you can come to the tribunal and quickly get your issues resolved, but then you do not have to go through complicated ways of filing pleadings, but you can have a simple kind of form to fill in your grievance, and you get help to get it uploaded online, and then we can have that kind of resolved. But I agree with you as well that indeed there are certain communities. Already we have noted a number of areas where most of these claims are coming from, or where there have been a lot of complaints about the process of acquiring compulsory acquisition and the compensation. So we have plans of going closer to the people and trying to inform them. We are also involving the Law Society of Kenya, because as much as we want everybody to be able to approach this court, without necessarily having to find a lawyer. Lawyers are also a key component of justice and access to justice. So we're reaching out to them. We're talking to them through the CPDs, that is continuing professional development, just to also sensitize everyone around the work of this tribunal and how to access it, and what to expect from it.
So how do you access it, Daktari? Because here we are saying that there could be, and it could be in the probably looking at a lot of these cases coming from rural Kenya.
Yes.
Right? Just because of how geographically things are set up and where folks own land. Okay? So if something happens and you find yourself in a situation where actually, you know what, it's the tribunal that would be able to figure this out for me. How do we start? Who do you pick up the phone, call? Do you visit a local office? How does the process play out? What do you do?
Well, of course, the access point is through the judiciary e-filing system.
Okay.
But we accept that, of course, that is not something that is known to everyone. So in our notices that we're putting out, we have our court administrators and their personal numbers and their personal emails, for persons who have challenges to, in terms of the procedure to file some of these claims, to call so that they can get the support that is required. You can be, guided through, how you can get to file online, and, your documents are uploaded, because the online filing system is it's actually a simple one, but it might not be simple to everyone. So by offering this kind of support, then it ensures that whoever is having a challenge uploading or knowing how to file or what kind of document to file, then they can easily reach out to our court support staff to enable them to do that.
And you need to pay to file?
There is a minimum filing fees, which I think is about 1,000 bob. Yeah, which is in the system, because the system also requires that you have to pay to upload certain documents.
I want to come off a question that Nerima asked, because the thought of taking government to court is foreboding at best. As you say, you want to take my land, and you've already established that we are not talking about whether you can or cannot. So long as a particular threshold has been met, the government can actually come and tell you, look, we're taking this, we're going to pay you for it, but we're taking it. So we're saying that the tribunal is kind of like a fact checker.
Yeah.
To come and say, okay, did we do this? If you did, actually, then government can have your land and they're paying you for it. So if you have an issue, we can come and we can go through those facts and we can check. So it is not to dispute whether the government can actually take this land from you what you're disputing or what you're adjudicating over is the technicality as to whether they went through due process, whether they took up the responsibility to do things right. That's essentially what we're saying here, not questioning whether they can take it or not. Am I right?
Yeah, that's correct. But you can actually question whether they can take it or not. That is the first thing you can question.
Okay.
You can question whether the purpose for which the government wants to acquire land is a public purpose.
Okay.
Yeah, because and that is a question that can be determined. Can come before the tribunal, and the tribunal can make a determination on whether this was a public purpose. And before that, even the land, the government takes your land, once this request for compulsory acquisition of land comes to the National Land Commission, the National Land Commission is required to put out a notice through Gazette to state that government intends to acquire your property. The following are the identified owners of the property. This is the particular property that is required to be compulsorily acquired. And there's a requirement that notice has to be served on each and every person who's interested. So that is the person who owns the property, the person who's resident on the property, and then after that, there is a public inquiry where the National Land Commission will come to you, sit down with you, listen to your representations about your property, listen to representations about how much you think it's worth to be paid, and then make a decision. So after that decision has been made, after the National Land Commission has made a decision that yes, indeed, because already they have certified that this is the acquisition is for a public use, then they make a decision on how much you should be paid. Then that is when you can approach the court and say, there is a step that was skipped, or the inquiry about how much I should be paid was not done properly, and they left out a number of things. The improvements are done on the property. If you had some structure, they undervalued the structure. How long you've stayed on the property, whether you are resident on the property, whether there are other people resident on the property. So those are the small details that have to be taken into consideration in order for a just decision to be reached, because the law requires that there has to be just compensation. And the just compensation from the jurisprudence available is that whatever you're paid has to follow the principle of equivalence.
Okay.
Put you as close as possible to the situation you were in before the compulsory acquisition occurred. So, and also you also have to see the mandate of the tribunal as striking a balance to ensure that the person who has been deprived of property is justly compensated, but also public funds are prudently used so that there is no opportunity, as was stated in one of the cases called Patrick Musimba, for looting, for instance, because there could be a ploy to acquire a property which its value to you, would have been 500,000, and someone wants to pay you 5 million.
And who are you to refuse?
Yes. But then, so the tribunal has a mandate to either vary, quash the whole process, or uphold the whole process by the National Land Commission.
Would the tribunal get involved in cases, and this is the question coming from, that, sometimes you're traveling about and you see that private companies have installations on your land.
Absolutely.
There's something, they maybe pay you something every month kind of thing, or per year. Does the tribunal get involved in that, and at what level?
The tribunal's mandate also extends to what I refer to as way leaves and easements. So what they're talking about...
Excuse me. Yes, explain those two things.
Yes. I will start with the first one that they're talking about, a way leave.
Yeah.
So if, an installation, a telecom company wants to install something on your property, let's say a telecom mast, you have a right to be compensated for that installation. And that is what is referred to as a way leave.
Okay.
An easement, on the other hand...
Spell that one, is? I-S?
Easement.
ISMINT.
EASEMENT.
Easement. Is this English?
Yes.
Easement.
And on the other hand, an easement is a non-possessory right, where, for instance, you have a right to views or to light, and someone comes up and builds
billboard.
Puts up something that completely
Oh, really?
blocks you from
natural
light. Or it could also be that I think this is a lot in the village where there is a natural water spring, and we could pass through someone's land to go and collect the water.
Yes.
But if someone one day says that you can no longer pass through my land, but then that is the only way to access the natural water spring, which supplies the village with water.
Yes.
You can come to the tribunal.
Who?
The person
the owner of the land.
No, not the owner of the land.
The person who wants to go and get the water can go to the tribunal and say, we've been walking, but sorry, Daktari, you're walking through somebody's private property to approach this public resource.
Yes.
Isn't it? Public natural resource.
Yes.
So who would go to the tribunal? Go to the tribunal and say, force this person to allow us, it's their private property, to allow us access to this public resource?
You are not forcing the person to allow you. This is something that you've been doing since, for generations and generations. So you've acquired an unpossessory right to this property. You don't own that property. You don't own that land, that path that you pass through. It's not public road, but it is a right that has crystallized, and you cannot just take it away. So, and that is the same thing with someone who blocks you from light completely. You don't have. Everybody has a right to do whatever they want within their property. But if whatever the person does in their property completely changes, either the kind of views that you had bought your property for, or light completely that you can't access, light and all that, then you can challenge that in court and in the tribunal, and the tribunal will make a determination to say whether there is an easement.
I think I have a case. Let me see where I live. Someone, it's a, I don't know what you call it. When it rains, I live at the bottom of like a hill. So someone has constructed a house and fenced it, and the water used to naturally flow through the bottom of the hill into a seasonal river.
Yeah.
So now, because he has put a wall, it has caused where I live to flood. But he says, this is my property, and I've put a wall. But the neighbors are flooding, and we're afraid of El Nino. Actually, right now as we speak, there's a lot of running all over the neighborhood, and people are trying to, I don't know what they are doing.
So if you remove this wall, that problem wouldn't be there.
The water would flow.
It would not be there. So
is it
do I have a
possible
case?
to build a wall and leave a passage for the water to pass by?
It is possible, and that's what we're pushing for. But he seems very stubborn about us breaking his wall.
Well, I'll not make any further comments. Otherwise, I will have to recuse myself if you come before me. But then you have a general idea about easements, and indeed,
it's the sort of case that one could bring.
Okay, so this kind of makes sense. So then, this is what my initial question, that there could be then thousands of cases, Dr. Orina, that would come before the tribunal because people have been dealing with things. A road is constructed. There used to be hawkers on the side of the road whose now sheds were removed as a result of that, and they, according to what you're saying, what did you call it? A non-possessory right to that place, because they've been buying and selling, creating a livelihood on that road. You've decided come and construct road, and you've said now this area where you've been will be beautification. You no longer have access to. Is this one of the things?
Well, it's slightly different because it goes into planning and city and the right of county governments to do this. And they have other mechanisms for grievance settlement. I think through within the mechanisms of the county, and then after that, if you're still dissatisfied, you could go somewhere else. But there are, similar situations where the tribunal could have jurisdiction.
So are there prerequisites that you look at, like a pre-list that you say, look, these are the things that we would say meet the threshold to come to the tribunal? Because I can envisage a situation whereby everybody and their uncle is going to come with cases whereby it has something to do with what we were used to doing before and what we cannot do anymore on this particular land. Would you sieve through and say, if it meets threshold 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, then these will be heard before the tribunal? How do you know what cases to take and what to not? Because I'm sure, like Nerima, there are many people who say, this tribunal, we're waiting for you now. You are here, we're bringing our case.
Well, the cases will be filed before tribunal, and the same way they are filed before court. And sometimes the tribunal or the court would look at the case and say, well, this looks like there's a problem here, but unfortunately, it's not something that we can adjudicate upon. And the judiciary, through the Chief Justice's social transformation through access to justice, there's access to justice. It also follows what is referred to as a multi-door policy, where, for instance, if you file something wrong before the tribunal, we can look at it, and because the tribunal has to enhance access to justice, then we can tell you that what you filed before us probably belongs to another tribunal. Okay. That is, not shutting the door on you, but just
referring you,
telling you that you should file this before the National Environment Tribunal. Okay. If it's a question of, the environment and resources in regard to that. So that is also a way to foster access to justice, not necessarily shutting the door on someone. But there's a possibility that you will get cases before you that are not your business, and you just have to either advise the parties that you can file this complaint in a different jurisdiction, or we do not have, when we look at the law, because when a case comes before you, you have to look at the law and determine whether you have jurisdiction. And jurisdiction is found in the law. Does the Land Act or any other law give you powers to adjudicate over a question like this? For instance, in regard to an easement, would this be an easement? Would the definition of an easement also cover, certain other issues that, are not necessarily thought to be, outrightly to be an easement? So you have to, make a determination at that stage. And the first thing to do is determine whether you have jurisdiction. Yes.
This is one of the most interesting conversations I've had regarding the law. And why I'm saying it's interesting is because it sheds light in an area that has hitherto been very grey. Like the cases we read about and we talk about, say for instance, people were supposed to be compensated when the SGR was constructed. Yes. And you hear that some were not compensated. There was this amount. National Land Commission had this to say. A lot of fluff and a lot of dust about it. I am waiting to see how some of these things will be resolved. Absolutely. It'll make for interesting reading and hearing. Yes.
Yeah. We look forward to make determinations that will, restore confidence in, problem resolving mechanisms within the judiciary.
As an almost final one, will you be looking at cases that have some history? Because people might come and say, well, okay, this has been tied up in the courts forever and there's been no adequate adjudication over it, and now here's this tribunal. Can you bring a case that has been wrapped up in legalese and the law forever and say, well, now that the tribunal is here, this is clearly a cut and dry case for the tribunal? What kind of statutory limitations will you be looking at when it comes to cases here?
Of course, there is a requirement that you should appeal to the tribunal, 30 days after a decision has been made. However, and even this would happen in any other court, where certain circumstances, extenuating circumstances, that a party comes to court and says, I seek leave to file out of this period because, we have been embroiled in a dispute over even ownership of the property that was taken. Because before you can even determine whether the compensation was sufficient, parties could be, disputing on who owns this property.
In the first place.
And that is not within our mandate. That they have to go to another court. So they would have been stuck in the Environment and Land Court for years trying to determine who was the right party to be compensated. And then when eventually the Environment and Land Court says you are the right party to be compensated, it is 5 years down the line. You cannot shut the door.
You can't shut the door.
Yeah.
It'll be very interesting to see how this plays out. We'd love you to, give us feedback on how this happens. And it looks to me like that thing when you open the gates and there will be hundreds of cases that come before the tribunal, and how you're going to be able to sort that out. So, I think it's very interesting, and seeing opening the door and access to this kind of justice then plays out. Dr. Nabel Orina, thank you for being here with us. The chairperson of the Land Acquisition Tribunal, opening its doors to Kenyans in when? A few days, a week, months? Okay, and we'll get more about that as we go along. Thank you for being a guest on Kenya's Biggest Conversation today.
Thank you for
And we'll talk again very soon into the future. All right, guys, thanks for being here. We continue the conversation after 9 o'clock. Let's listen to the news. It's 9 a.m.
Spice up your life.
Good morning, this is Newswire. I'm Dennis Aseto. The Judicial Service Commission says that the Salaries and Remuneration Commission should have nothing to do with the working conditions of judges and judicial officers. JSC Vice Chair Macharia Njeru says the Commission will defend the independence of the judiciary, even as the Controller of Budget, Dr. Margaret Nyakango, revealed that the judiciary had attempted to incur expenditure without approval, which she finds against the Constitution. One of the complaints in the standoff that has been simmering for several months between the three constitutional bodies involves taxable car grants for judges that were scrapped by the Salaries and Remuneration Commission in June 2022. Now, President William Ruto has appointed Renson Mulele Igonga to be the Director of the Public Prosecutions for a term of 8 years. Last week, Wednesday, the National Assembly approved the appointment of Mulele as the next Director of the Public Prosecutions. A section of lawmakers described him as an officer whose integrity is beyond approach and who is fit to hold the tough office. He was challenged to ensure the independence of the office and avoid acting on the whims of the political class. Mulele will be taking over from Nurdin Haji, who moved to the National Intelligence Service Office. The office of the Director of Public Prosecutions has been vacant for a while after the former DPP was appointed to the National Intelligence Service in June. Igonga served as an Assistant Director of Public Prosecutions. He was among 15 applicants shortlisted by the job by a 7-member selection panel chaired by Solicitor General Shadrack Mose. And Kenya is seeking to strengthen cooperation with China, particularly in terms of intelligence sharing, joint security operation and security management, in a strategic move to bolster its security capabilities in the wake of escalating global threats. Raymond Omolo, Principal Secretary of Internal Security and National Administration, has said the move will play a critical role in boosting Kenya's capacity to tackle the emerging security threats. He emphasized that the rapidly evolving global security landscape necessitates a unified approach to preserving peace. And the National Dialogue Committee resumes its sittings today at the Bomas. This as tension is expected following the latest demand by Azimio. Azimio's latest demand is the suspension of the implementation of the Finance Act of 2023. According to Azimio, the action to push for the non-implementation of the Act is one of the ways that they want to cooperate to ensure that the government addresses the rising cost of living in the presence of the high taxes. Another issue the Azimio wants to be implemented before proceeding with the negotiations is to be allowed to punish its members in both houses without interference from the Speaker. speakers of the houses. And United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres has issued a stark warning as he gathered world leaders for a high-level summit on the climate crisis, saying humanity has opened the gates to hell. He regretted that horrendous heat is having horrendous effects. Distraught farmers watch as crops get carried away by floods, and sweltering temperatures spore diseases. He warned that if nothing is done, we are heading towards a dangerous and unstable world. The one-day conference, which comes as the world grapples with the devastating floods and fires, is intended to build global momentum towards slashing planet-heating pollution ahead of the UN's COP28 climate summit in Dubai in December. And the Pharmacies and Poisons Board has recalled Tamidol oral solution, a pain reliever, over quality concerns. The board, in a statement, said it had received multiple market complaints on the quality of several batches of paracetamol oral solution manufactured by Biopharma Limited Kenya. Upon investigation, the body established that the medicine failed to meet the prescribed market authorization requirements and has advised all pharmaceutical outlets, healthcare facilities, healthcare professionals and members of the public to take immediate action, which includes stopping the further distribution, sale or use of the drug. Members of the public have also been urged to return the product to their nearest healthcare facility, while healthcare facilities are instructed to return the product to their respective suppliers. And Rwanda's President Paul Kagame has confirmed that he will run for a fourth term next year. In an interview with French magazine, the 65-year-old Kagame said that he was happy to carry on as long as Rwandans wanted him to stay and serve them. He had previously hinted that he could run for re-election, but this is the first time that he has categorically stated he will run in the presidential election scheduled for August 2024. Kagame has faced criticism from rights groups which have accused him of cracking down on the opposition, but the president said he was not bothered by the opinion of outsiders. This is Newswire. I'm Dennis Aseto. Good morning.
Traffic.
94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
3, 2.
Everybody, welcome to Kenya's biggest conversation.
Heri Latifa, Kismuga, Madam Du, nimesalamia wote sana.
Tumepokea salamu, asante sana.
Hapa Garissa today the weather is very good, only that baridi inatupeleka mbio sana.
Baridi ni degree ngapi hapo?
Hata sijui, lakini madam tunakauka sana.
If you want to follow the money trail, you've got to think like a thief to be able to catch that thief.
A slap from a friend is better than a kiss from an enemy. You remember the kiss of Judas Iscariot? Iscariot.
Yes.
Is the one that imetuweka kwa hii mashida yote na mataabu kwa sababu of that kiss. Yet the slap of Jesus Christ, when he slapped those guys wenye walikuwa wanauza mboga ndani ya kanisa, took them to heaven.
The Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation.
Okay, so still looking at traffic at a few minutes after 6 o'clock, and we're still in traffic hour. Probably looking about a half hour or so before this all comes to a head. Huru Highway is busy getting into the CBD, and we're looking at traffic coming off of Jogoo Road, getting out towards Landis. That's going to be busy for a minute. Westlands is not doing too badly. Waiyaki Way is going to puff up with traffic as you get closer towards Chiromo Junction. But if then you're coming off of Thika Superhighway, you're fine now. It was looking a little bit sticky earlier, but I think now it's much better than it was before. All right, what else are we seeing? Coming off of Cabanas towards the North Airport Road, that seems to have cleared up. We're doing very well, folks. Let's keep it just so. Thursday morning, not looking too bad. Spice FM KE on X as we keep things moving this morning.
This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Oko, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latif, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
Thursday, the 21st of September, and we're getting into it with an eye on what is getting better or anything that might be getting worse. You wonder what I'm talking about? We'll let you know in just a bit. Our guest for this hour is seated, and we're going to have a discussion with him in a minute. But I want to remind you about Kenya's largest single-day athletics event. It's taking place on the 29th of October. And you ask, what's that? Well, it's the Standard Chartered Nairobi Marathon. And I must ask you, have you registered for it? If you haven't, you still have some time. Log on to www.nairobimarathon.com. Register with 2,000 shillings and you could find yourself on the 29th of October at Uhuru Gardens, getting into that 5K, the 10K, the 21K or the 42K, whatever it may be, joining the Future Makers program, whereby life is made a little bit easier for young people, especially girls and people living with disability, to learn, earn and grow. It's a special one because it's a 20th edition. Log on today and get into it. All right, our guest for this hour is seated, and there has been a lot in the public domain recently in terms of whether things are getting better, whether they're getting worse, or where exactly they are. Steve Mogaka is the Member of Parliament for West Mugirango constituency, and he's in the hot seat this morning. Mheshimiwa, good morning.
It is a good morning.
It is?
It is a good morning. Yeah, I've just come in. You have been in.
Yes.
I have just come in. It is a good morning.
It is a fantastic Wonderful. So now that is such a nice welcome. City has a very nice Southern African welcome in by way of proverb to say karibu sana to Kenya's biggest conversation. Now that you're in the hot seat, City is going to welcome you properly.
Yes, our proverbs for the whole of this week ending tomorrow are from the country of Malawi, otherwise known as the Republic of Malawi. The day before Friday is called Thursday. Now, this is the day. Ants die in sugar. We normally keep the simple, easy to understand proverbs for Thursday. The week has been long, so simple. Ants die in sugar.
Is the meaning easy for you, Mheshimiwa?
No, a meaning is what you ascribe to the English words that have been read. But that sugar can be very sugary if ants die in it.
Right.
But I think it is a good proverb.
How does it resonate with you?
Wow. It does resonate well because I'm like, that is the best way to go to heaven. Dying in sugar. Sweet. Dying in sweetness. Yeah. Who would miss or not want to be part of that? That's going to heaven happily.
What a better way to go out. There's no better way to go out than in sweetness.
I know.
Wow. Well, okay.
Although that will leave raptures on those who are left, and I'm told dying in a sugary environment actually is the best thing for the dying, but not for the bereaved. Because then they will not use that sugar which ants have died in.
This is going to be fun. All right. Very interesting. Okay, that's a smashing shirt, by the way, Mheshimiwa.
For the invite.
Now, we're looking into, of course, the thing. So many things have been going on over the last 1 month, and even before that, things have been up in the air. Okay, coming to 1 year into a new administration, politically and also from a government point of view, and everybody's asking the questions. Okay, usually by one, and I usually liken it to a baby. By the time a child is 1 year old, there's certain things you expect he or she to have done, right? And all of this is based on what other children have done. So you only ascribe milestones to a baby based on other babies and what they've done by that time, that 1 year. Are they standing up? Are they saying words? Are they eating solid food, etc., etc.? So usually that 1 year milestone is a big deal. Same thing in government. So for you, what do you think has happened? How do you see things have occurred over this 1 year?
Very well. Being my first show, permit me then first to thank the people of West Mugrango constituency who saw it fit to elect me for the first time during this new government season. I really am indebted to them. And they elected me in a Jubilee ticket. And as you are aware, the Jubilee Party, comprising 28 members, is working with government. That's a very well calculated or choreographed statement, working with government, not for government. Having said that, we are 1 year into the new administration. So much has happened. It is a transitional administration. Properly evaluated, this 1 year is 1 year of planning. Because remember, we swore in a government sometime in September. But you recall that we swore in that government using a budget that was passed in June 2022, before this government was elected, and when this government was divergent with the then government, so that the budget for 2022 was enacted or passed with planners completely divergent with the existing administration. And therefore, 1 year down, I can say that this administration has tried using other people's toolkits. And therefore, whatever we evaluate them, let us evaluate them as a government that has been working on borrowed kit. And therefore, they have so far tried, given that they were using instruments not of their own to perform a song of their own.
Okay. You're a first-time member of parliament, right?
Oh, yes.
And you've come onto the scene at a transitionary point from one different government to another. Being outside of the National Assembly years before and then being a first-time member of parliament, what have you seen in terms of a difference in how government has played out in Kenya? Before we now go to how it has performed 1 year into the nitty-gritty.
When I was still an aspirant, as those not elected are called, I was viewing government from outside. It was fairly abstract. At that time, I was a lawyer and a constitutional lawyer, and I was a fault finder on government operations. You will recall that was a time that we were dealing with a nullified election for the first time in the history of Africa by very serious judicial minds, which led to no see, no hear between the executive and the judiciary. And that standoff did undermine the judiciary, and therefore, we saw a government running on its own, disobeying court orders, and the judiciary sometimes digging in and sometimes caving in. But that was a season we were at when I was a practicing lawyer and an aspirant to become a member of parliament. And at that time, of course, we noticed that the country was on autopilot, being run by practically one CS who was coordinating government business, where there were no cabinet sittings, and that is what was there. And we saw for the first time the same government split into two. And we found a government that one piece of government is working with the opposition and one piece singing a different song, and there was total discordance, and that is what we were treated to, and that is why I am saying that the budget for 2023 was enacted within that environment. With a view to starving the judiciary or punishing the judiciary by not providing any funding for them, by ensuring that the government operates with the few who were in the cockpit, to be fair, we also saw tremendous infrastructural growth, although it was through borrowed capital, if you want to call it like that. So that we were dealing with that kind of government that then precipitated into, you can even say, sheer anarchy, because you do not know now who is government. We saw a deputy president totally defiant of the presidency, and we saw a helpless president trying to survive using numbers in parliament, borrowed numbers in parliament, so much so that, strictly speaking, the country was living by the grace. Thank God the term ended, and we went into an election, and here we are.
And this was all up until 2022.
This was all up to August, call it September 2022.
Okay, so enter 2022, August 10th, going in. You've been elected by the people. What differences have you seen then, based on what you've said, between 2022, August 10th, and today, September 21st, that you say this crisis, this whole, lackadaisical approach towards governance that was happening, and today, do you see something totally different from that?
Yes, there is a difference of some sort. Firstly, this government had given certain pledges, those of interest to me, in terms of supporting the governance structures, was that we saw the judiciary being capacitated, both in human resource as well as exchequer funding. And for that, I think we all must commend this government, because the three arms of government are supposed to be independent, although interdependent. The most serious arm of government, if you asked me, is the judiciary. A sober and capacitated judiciary can make all of us comply with the Constitution and avoid or be stopped from doing that is extra constitutional. And to that extent, I want to thank this government that in terms of human capital and in terms of budget deficiency, this government has capacitated the judiciary. In terms of the executive, of course, the selection of the members of the executive, by and large, belong to His Excellency the President. But the public, you and I, as members of the public, as well as the legislature, parliaments, do play a role, either in vetting, or sanitizing, whatever name you want to use, those who are going to be part of the executive, particularly in the cabinet positions.
Okay.
And all of us as a country were involved in one way or the other in filling those positions, which we call cabinet, which is really the nucleus of the executive. And then we all filled those positions. There were misgivings from some quarters in terms of perceptions on integrity of certain members of the cabinet as they are today. But that is water under the bridge, because they all got there and they are serving and they are 1 year down.
Okay.
So what I see different, therefore, is that unlike before, at least we see a collegiate executive where there are cabinet meetings being conducted, and therefore, unlike the past regime, you can see a semblance of collective responsibility or collective collegiate management of the affairs of this republic. And therefore, whatever decisions have been taken, particularly by the executive, every member of the executive, including the president, is a part and parcel of it, is responsible for it, and if good, they receive accolades together. If bad, they must carry the cross collectively. So at least I see cabinet working. I see leadership from the top. And for the first time, we have seen members of the cabinet who come late to work getting locked out, although we didn't see sanctions follow after that.
Yeah.
So whether it was for camera or whatever, at least we saw a sense of seriousness exhibited by the chief executive of the country. So that is different.
Okay.
What is also different is that we see a presidency that is mobile, unlike the previous presidencies.
Mobile in what sense? Mobile, traveling around the world?
They're traveling, they are available, both locally and internationally. At least we didn't see that of the previous presidencies. And what therefore that means is these travels, of course, have a cost attribute. And therefore, unlike the previous presidency, which was by and large a sedentary in State House, this presidency is available to the people, and for that reason, the people must service the costs of approximate presidency. And these are the initial observations I can see of as attributes of the current regime vis-a-vis the previous one.
CT has 17 questions.
You know, you have served the profession to which you were called very well. You have also served the tasks that you've been assigned by the people of Mugirango.
West Mugirango, and I invite you there. Yes. It's going to be a model constituency.
How many Mugirangos are there?
There are 3.
There's West?
We have West, Steve Mogaka. Yes. We have South Mugirango, Chief Whip Silvano Sosoro. Then we have North Mugirango, Chair of the Lands Committee, Joash Nyamoko. 3. Just see. Like the 3 arms of government.
I say you've served. Well, you have prosecuted your case very, very well indeed. I am not going to get into the where-to-fors and discussing who did what and when and how and why. No, that is an unnecessary discussion. In your line of work, you'd say, I would consider it moot. The question is this government serving the interests of the people? Simple enough question.
The people at Ikowano, we the people of the Republic of Kenya. Yes, this government is endeavoring to serve the interest of the people. And as I've said previously, this government has been formed by all of us Kenyans. This government came in on a basis of certain promises given to the people, by the people, to the people. And the people have demanded these promises to be fulfilled. And 1 year later, we are looking at, really bottom line is, have these promises or pledges been fulfilled? And really that is where the rubber meets the road. And I have indicated that some of the pledges have been fulfilled, but because the government is operating on a borrowed budget, a borrowed kit, it would not be able to fulfill all their election pledges within the 1 year we are evaluating. And strictly speaking, this government has enacted or has brought a finance act, although it is still pending before court, a finance act that aligns itself to addressing those election pledges and promises comprehensively. Excuse me. And because everybody, every Kenyan wants their pledges fulfilled yesterday, it therefore puts pressure on this government to seek for ways and means of fulfilling these pledges. Hence, the little pain that the Kenyans will have to go through in funding the implementation of these pledges.
But Mheshimiwa, are the citizenry being unreasonable in the expectations, or were they led to expect?
To believe that it was possible?
Yes, because if I am to go by just sampling some of the pledges that were made, it's the pledges that were made, and the pledges were exactly that yesterday. You see, the yardstick for expectation has to be anchored in what was promised. And now when disappointment follows, it again follows that same trajectory. What was promised, what then was realized, and what wasn't realized. And then there's something subtle here. There's this thing called coming out and simply speaking the truth about it, because the truth is not everything can be done. You can make the promise intending to, then you get into the office and you realize this thing can't be done the way I said it. It honestly can't be done. It will be done, but this is what we need to do. Now, are people's expectations unrealistic?
Yes, all of us Kenyans had and still have very unrealistic expectations. Firstly, and without holding brief for the current administration,
yes,
they are on record in saying that when they got into office and had plans of the implementation of their pledges. Of course, the pledges are implemented using government finance. And they are on record in saying that they ran into not only empty coffers, but a baggage of debts that this country has to service. So to get out of that hole, because the national debt has got to be serviced, and public service must also be maintained.
Yeah.
And pledges must also be implemented by yesterday. And therefore, getting the government finding itself in this situation, I bet as a member of parliament, I have been lucky to be taken through how government revenue is raised. Because all of us, as a country, were present when the Appropriation Act was being enacted in the Finance Act 2023. And the Appropriation Act is what is literally described as a command by the people of Kenya to the executive or to the government of the day of what they must do. And in this Appropriation Act, all those pledges are there. Everybody was here when we said we must put aggregation and industrial parks in 45 counties. Yeah, this has a financial implication, and money must be raised from somewhere. We all said we need an independent judiciary. We agreed. And therefore, money has to be sourced somewhere to give the judiciary the fund they want to be independent. And it has happened. All this has got to be funded by us Kenyans. Yeah? And this is the bit that we get a bit removed, that all of us want things done, but none of us want to finance them. And I say the expectations you were saying by us, the members of the public of this Republic of Kenya, need to do then a reality check. Do we need to do all these things now? If not, and I have dared, let us have the first person volunteer that they don't want their road fixed. Yeah, let us have anybody from this country say, today, me I relinquish my demand that my road be fixed, my electricity connectivity be cut off. Let us have people volunteering and saying now university education for our children and bursaries now should not be funded, so that we get a way of dealing with the expenditure side of this country. Unless we fix that, we are pretentious when we are all saying that the burden on Kenyans is too heavy. This, as Swahilis put it, ni musiba wa kujitakia.
Okay.
Na hautastahili kilio.
So, Mheshimiwa, I hear you saying that everything that's happening at the moment is in regard to fulfilling the expectations of Kenyans. Our audiences on KTN News join us now at this hour, and as we continue with this, Nerima has a question.
Yes. And it's perfect in terms of what you've ended on, in terms of pretentious is what I'm thinking. But I'm looking at the cover of the Star, and it basically saying how the president and the deputy have spent 1.4 billion. You've mentioned how he enjoys to travel. He's an approximate president on traveling in 9 months. And in the Standard today, we see the Parliamentary Budget Office basically warning and saying that the new measures in taxes, increased taxes, may lower KRA revenue. So any logical person would see taxes are being high, so consumers, citizens are going to change their everyday life to meet those taxes. We might travel less, we will do less in terms of what we buy, or we will try and buy things cheaper. We're seeing a decrease. As a citizen, we are tightening our belts. Is it double speak when we see our administration actually not tightening, but loosening? They're traveling much more.
Buying another belt.
Buying another belt. In this travel of 9 months, 1.4 billion. You don't see double standards here? Or do you what?
No, it is not about to me. It is about us, Kenyans. And as you say that, I think 2 or so weeks ago, the president came to launch the industrial park in my constituency.
Yes.
The first ever to be launched, and I thank this government for making West Mugirango and Nyamira Industrial Park the first one to be opened. And if you asked me, the turnout of people in that constituency and county was good. And everywhere the president visits, there is apparent gratitude, and there is demand by the areas that have not been visited to have their turn to host the presidency. And therefore, in answer to your question, if the public demands a service and demands presence of the executive, because even as elected members of parliament, it becomes suicidal when you don't go to your constituency for 2 or 3 consecutive weeks. And therefore you are compelled to be proximate to your employers, who are the electorate, and therefore, in answer to your question, how does leadership visit or travel to the employers if not at the employer's expense? Yeah, and that is why, as I answered, that if as Kenyans we have chosen a certain lifestyle, a certain expectation that you need your elected member of parliament here every other day, yeah. And now the cost of fuel is even going higher, yet you are required everywhere. The presidency is required everywhere. Yeah. And I say, let me have one constituency or county today come out and say, we do not consider the visit by the president or deputy president or cabinet to our constituency necessary. Let us save that money. I want to see who will be the first volunteer. And that is why I insisted that as Kenyans, when we do a reality check, let us look at the expenditure. What are we expecting? What can we abstain from? And if we do, then that will translate to savings. As long as we demand service, and as much as service is seen to include visitations by the head of state, including the rotation or hosting of public holidays in various counties in the Republic. I mean, we just have
so I hear you saying, Weshimiwa, that the way things are going, it is only to be expected. If you want a government that is working to be able to fulfill the expectations of people, the travel that we see, whether it's internal or external, the spending that we see by government is justified. And unless somebody has a better plan for how these things can work, then we should actually just bite the bullet and allow things to unfold. That's part one. But then how these things are broached to the people of Kenya are then also very important. The front page of the Standard today talks about what would be seen as a rift amongst, people within government because of things being said in a certain manner, and another party feeling, look, man, Kenyans are suffering. The way in which you say things to people matters. So then that would bring about a certain rift. Doesn't it matter the picture that you show to Kenyans today of how you are handling matters? If you show them that you can get up and travel and do whatever you want to do in the midst of suffering, then that's one thing. And the deputy president, from where he was talking about this and saying, look, man, Kenyans are suffering. How you speak to them matters, which is now the subject for what we are saying is a possible rift. I would like to hear what you think about that.
Thank you. You are simply talking of the communication policy for Kenya. And in the past, of course, that there was a time we had an office of government spokesperson to give official communication of government issues, government policies, and government actions to the people of the Republic of Kenya. And truth be said, 1 year into office, the public communication aspect of this government has not been fixed. And therefore, everybody took office as they were, and their conduct before election continued to be the same conduct after election and or occupying government positions. This really calls for a scrutiny of who is saying what and whether they have what the lawyers would call a locus to speak what they are speaking. Otherwise, again, it boils down to us Kenyans, that as Kenyans glorify drama, glorify comedy, so that our leaders perform their comic ways to office and continue to maintain their audience through such comedy. And therefore, it will become difficult to unmake or remake the people who have wriggled their way to comedy, to office by entertaining their audience and electorate. And therefore, I'm urging us Kenyans to be a little more serious, like we are starting to be, on the conduct and the communication we receive from those of us in leadership. And where there is insensitive communication, it is important that Kenyans take their role as employers of the leadership, make them to account, and even do the ultimate. Some of the utterances, of course, which have come from the top leadership, particularly the executive, have not been extremely palatable. And truth be said, all those who have made those utterances had no business making those utterances, because one, they were not relating to their portfolio to start with. Two, it did not even arise out of any cabinet decision that had been taken for such communication to be issued. And then finally, the collective responsibility of our executive, I want to say, must be called upon. I have seen the deputy president trying to desperately do firefighting. But truth be told, and that we must be candid, that Kenyan citizens as employers of government deserve better, particularly when times are hard like they are. Yes. And therefore, I will not hesitate to condemn utterances that try to speak down on the Kenyan citizens, that try to wrap already raw wounds of Kenyan citizens. Kenyans are paining, and that is true. Of course, this transition is a painful transition in the short run, and during those times, the least we expect from us leadership is to try and explain to the employers that there is light at the end of the tunnel. We want to see a citizenship that is aware of what is happening, or that is made aware of what is being done to mitigate the current situation, and that gives hope that in a little while that things will, as I know they will, improve for the better.
You know, this isn't an easy road to travel, because I guess if you are my age, you will probably understand of a time when you could argue things were similar to what we have, but similar, but not the same. The situation we have right now, we've never been in before as a country. We simply haven't. We've been in situations where the Bretton Woods institutions have declined to give us money. We've been in situations where our government has declined to offer the help they give us. We've been in situations where we've had droughts. We've been in situations where the dollar has done a thing now. It may be surprising, but the issue of inflation first came to light in this country in the 70s. We didn't know inflation was something we didn't even know about. And it's around the time when OPEC was formed. And then so the word cartel hadn't even been invented then, but it became a cartel. So the price of oil kept doing the yo-yo. Now, right now, you cannot talk about the price of oil without asking, because there's been a comparison. In this year, it was this dollar. Now, it's this amount of dollar. But what was the exchange rate of the dollar? Because that's really at the heart of it. If indeed the dollar 3 years ago was close to 100 shillings, and now it is 150, it means it is 150 times more than it was before. Now, it then becomes difficult to imagine that that is one component of the problems. Then we had this prolonged drought. Now we're expecting serious rainfalls. Then you have a government that is juggling all these things with a population that is constantly on the increase, and we have a young population. So those contributing to the government coffers are fewer than those who actually need the money and need to be sustained. Why am I going through this process? To explain that those in leadership don't bother to explain in a way that is understood. They issue blank statements. Sometimes when they're inclined, they will threaten. And when all seems to be up in the air, they'll make promises. Whereas a simple little explanation would suffice. Now, whether somebody believes the explanation or not is a different matter altogether. But saying, folks, this is where we are in reality. Saying, brace for hard times, what the hell are you telling us? We already know, we are living it, so stop telling us what we know. Say, these are hard times, and then say, look, these are the things we want to do, and this is how we want to go about solving it. Because we don't elect leaders to tell us the problems we already know. We elect them so that they can help us solve these problems. Now, failure of government is also an interesting subject. It's interesting because whether the government, in my eyes, have failed or not depends on what I expect and what I consider to be success. But there is no government since independence that has not inherited someone else's mess. You inherit the benefits, but you inherit the mess as well. Now, the measure of your presidency or that government is in how you deal with your situation and what you inherited. That's what you judge you by. And you can't run away from it because it's in the same country. So again, the communication. And then there's the issue of the optics. We are told about the dire circumstances we are in. You know, optics are a terrible thing. They're a terrible thing because when you tell us as the leadership that we are suffering, and the optics are you are not suffering. And why do we say this? It's like Kenya seems to be the one country where black SUVs are sold. There are so many. And then people can't simply travel to a place. They have to travel with an entourage of God knows how many vehicles. Now, in the larger scheme of things, the cost of these vehicles and travel it may not be really that much if you look at the sort of budget we have. But the optics are terrible.
Yeah. How it looks matters.
Yes.
Isn't it?
When the banks tell us of the profits they make in the billions, tens of billions of shillings, against a backdrop of a situation where very many people in this country don't even know what they are going to eat. Some simply just starve.
Yeah.
Some even die of starvation. Again, optics. So you wonder, can the leadership see that this disparity is a recipe for a disaster?
Can you see, Mweshimiwa? It's a question. Can you see?
Because these numbers are not getting less. They are increasing.
Exactly.
When we had that throng of people going for KDF, I like that picture.
It's very scary.
Yes. You'd think they were demonstrating. They had actually gone to seek employment. 350 positions.
That's why their rallies are crowded.
Yes.
People are not working.
They have nothing
It's
to do.
an opportunity.
So if you call a rally, people will come.
That's why they come.
Now, all we're saying is we genuinely have a ticking time bomb, and the issue is not how to manage it, but how to actually provide solutions that people can see. And they say, we see a solution. We've seen this. And it doesn't have to be all at once. It has to be in bits. Now, you say you want your constitution to be a model constitution. I think, constituency rather. I believe you can do it.
And it will.
Yeah, I believe you can do it. Yes, if you have the will to do it and you know how to go about it, then you will definitely do it. Now, unfortunately, what you want to do is not what everybody else who is in your position wants to do. So, where are we? This is why you find when we are at a loss and we don't know what to do, we just summarize and say, government.
Where should the eye be? Where should we cast the eye for solutions here? And I think that was the thrust of this question. Then moving forward, that a year has gone by and this is what we are seeing at this point. Are we bracing ourselves for more difficulty moving forward? Or are we saying truly this is teething, and once the tooth cracks the skin, then we'll be fine? Is that what you're saying?
No.
It's a tough one, isn't it?
Yeah. What I ask Kenyans is not to embrace despair, because this country has been through worse before and picked itself up. And,
worse than this, no.
I know it has been worse than this. The only difference now is that we know and tell each other what we are going through. Before, we have been suffering in quietness. And I like the concern that Kenyans as a citizenry are having on what is happening today. And it is this that will enable leadership to be a bit sensitive on the decisions we take and how we handle public affairs. But all said and done, the employment or unemployment problem is not a creation of the current administration. Let us admit that. These are not miracle youths who were born yesterday after the last election. Let us admit that it is now that it is playing out, and thanks to the hustler movement, because it woke up everybody to claim a sense of belonging and livelihood in this republic. And that is why when I look at the strategy of the Kenya Kwanza government that seeks to address this problem, because we lost it because all those youth we were seeing looking for employment simply had no skill. They were simply making their bodies available for employment. And that is why we admittedly have lost a generation who, through our curricula, were teaching and examining people to get employed. And you ask each of them, which employment are you looking for? They say any. If it is KDF, they will all crowd there. If it is NYS, they will all crowd there. And this is the greatest failure of us as Kenyans, that our education system has been rolling out unemployable youth or graduates at whatever level you are talking about. And therefore, late as it may be, this government has been very strategic and emphatic that let us build vocational institutes, let us build technical institutes and inculcate skills on these people. I'm telling you, if those children seeking to go to these askari jobs were plumbers, were electricians, were mechanics, we will not be having them waiting there, because they will come where your car has got a problem, they will fix it and they'll get their earning. And really, this is where, as a country, we must admit that we were all collectively as a nation wrong, and let us pick it from there. We may not help this current generation of people who rolled out of school and are sitting there waiting for any job. But let us deal with those who we are able to save. Let us build skills in them. And that is why these county industrial and aggregation parks come in handy. And I want us as citizens to market these industrial centers so that we have investors putting technologies there, because this is the future of our children.
So essentially what you're saying, Mheshimiwa, is that we're looking at a situation whereby, again, and I'm still asking the question, what you're saying is that this pain that Kenyans are feeling today is temporary. And from what you're seeing, that the hands are already on deck to make sure that this pain passes. Is that what you're saying?
Oh,
that
yes.
It's temporary.
Oh, yes.
That this is not for the long haul.
This is in the short run. Yeah. From the medium to the long term. And that is why I'm saying we may have nothing to do immediately to solve the unemployment question in this country. 1. 2, we may have nothing to do immediately to deal with the escalating fuel prices because of the global situation. Yeah, we may have nothing, but we have something to do, which is already work in progress, to ensure recurrence of this kind of phenomena going forward. Because the beaten dollar which we use to buy the oil, is only doing worse. And I say, while we are paying heavily as importers, those who are in the export business, the team farmers, those who are doing export business from this republic, are also laughing all the way to the bank because the exchange gain is in their favor. They are paid in dollars. They are able to exchange their dollars and get a bigger shilling. That is why if you look at the tea bonuses in the tea growing areas, they are very handsome. So this is a double-edged sword that those of us who rely on dollar economy, importation of inputs or end products, we have to pay the price. And that is why I'm saying that as a permanent solution, I am seeing the president's delegation have struck a deal to migrate reliance on fuel as a means of transportation. And when we migrate to alternative sources of energy, then we are actually gradually planning on how to avoid reliance on this OPEC fixed pricing of crude that Africa is not in control over.
The pain is real, though, for Kenyans today.
Oh, yes, it's
the pain
real.
of going hungry every day and not seeing an end in sight is real. And I think these are conversations that must be front and center. And members of parliament, which you fall squarely in, also then are called upon to really push for some of these things at the point where the people have called them in. Our time runs out too quickly when we have conversations like this. It's necessary for us to keep these conversations front and center, and hopefully that sensitization grows on the minds of people who have something to do about it. So I'd like, in a very short few, tell me what you think going forward. How would you encourage Kenyans today?
I want to encourage Kenyans that collectively we will make it. And this country is ours. This government is ours. And all of us have a role to play through public participation to ensure that the policies put in place in this republic are policies that are citizen-friendly, that are going to help this country wriggle out of this quagmire. And going forward, I would want to see us leadership being a little sensitive in handling the various positions we are privileged to hold. And I can assure you that if each of us play our role and help empower the Kenyans to have purchasing power, this will mitigate this temporary pain that the country is going through. And going forward, I trust that together we shall help this country become a successful country, in fact, a developed country.
Steve Mogaka, Member of Parliament, West Mugirango constituency, thanks for being our guest this hour. And thank you for being with us since 6 a.m.
Can you imagine?
It's been great having you hosting with us. We hope to do it again in the future. Folks, we'll join again tomorrow at 6 a.m. It's 10 a.m.
Last week, Wednesday, the National Assembly approved the appointment of Mulele as the next Director of Public Prosecutions. A section of lawmakers described him as an officer whose integrity is beyond reproach and who is fit to hold the tough office. He was challenged to ensure the independence of the office and avoid acting on the whims of the political class. Mulele will be taking over from Nuruddin Haji, who moved to the National Intelligence Service Office. Igonga served as an Assistant Director of Public Prosecutions. He was among 15 applicants shortlisted for the job by a